Chapter 550. The three heavenly consort candidates stood quietly on the holy altar and waited. When Long Yunxiao stepped onto the holy altar, Lan Huixin and Ensuan both looked up at him. Lan Huixin pretended to be dignified, but her eyes were filled with expectation and adoration as she looked around. Ensuan's gaze towards Long Yunxiao contained a trace of sincere concern, as well as her usual adoration. Only Yunyao did not look up at Long Yunxiao. It was as if she did not care about everything around her. With such a cold and aloof demeanor, she was truly like an otherworldly fairy. Long Yunxiao stood on the holy altar and bowed to the heavens. Then, he bowed to the imperial tutor. Finally, he looked at the three heavenly consort candidates. His expression was as cold as ice. He did not look happy about choosing a heavenly consort at all. Instead, he exuded a cold aura. Most of the guests were not familiar with him, so they could not see anything unusual about him. They only felt that this was the majestic aura that the emperor should have. However, the three heavenly consort candidates, Ji Tianqing, and the other princes could feel that something was wrong with Long Yunxiao. After a moment of silence, Long Yunxiao looked at the first beauty, Lan Huixin, under everyone's gaze. Lan Huixin lowered her head shyly when he looked at her. She did not dare to look him in the eye. However, her heart was filled with joy and excitement. Her heartbeat also sped up. The emperor looked at me first. It seems like he wants to talk to me. Could it be that the emperor wants to choose me as the heavenly consort? Thinking of this, Lan Huixin was overjoyed, and her body trembled with excitement. However, after waiting for a while, she did not hear the emperor announce his decision. She looked up in confusion. Long Yunxiao looked at her expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Miss Lan, you're a pure and kind girl." Long Yunxiao's voice was not loud, but it spread throughout the apocalyptic pagoda. Everyone heard it clearly. Many guests and princes looked at Long Yunxiao with bated breaths. They wondered if Long Yunxiao was going to choose Lan Huixin as his heavenly consort. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Long Yunxiao continued, "However, I'm not fated to be with you. I hope you can find the right person soon." After saying that, Long Yunxiao retracted his gaze and no longer looked at Lan Huixin. From beginning to end, his eyes were calm and indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Lan Huixin was immediately dumbfounded. She stood stiffly on the stage, not knowing what to do for a moment. Just a moment ago, she was filled with joy and excitement. She thought that she was going to be favored by the emperor and become a heavenly concubine. But at this moment, the Son of Heaven announced the result in a cold tone, causing her to fall from the clouds to hell. Lan Huixin was filled with grievances and heartbreak. She almost couldn't hold back her tears. However, this was the Apocalypse Pagoda. In front of so many powerful cultivators, how could she not care about her reputation? She could only suppress her grief and press her lips together, allowing the tears in her eyes to fall silently. At this moment, Long Yunxiao walked in front of Yunyao and looked at Yunyao with a complicated expression. He didn't open his mouth to speak, but his eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky and as complex as ripples on the surface of water, had already revealed everything. There was longing, gentleness, and reluctance. Yunyao also looked at him calmly. She did not speak, and her expression did not change. The two of them looked at each other but remained silent. Many guests and thearchs on the stage started whispering to each other. "I've heard that the Son of Heaven is infatuated with Yunyao and is determined to marry Yunyao as his heavenly concubine. I've heard about it too. This news is not a secret. All the major forces in Middle Ground know about it. Look at how affectionate they are looking at each other. It looks like there won't be any suspense today. The Son of Heaven is definitely going to choose Yunyao as his heavenly concubine. That's right. Among the three beauties, Yunyao is the most outstanding one. She is not only the Yun family's daughter but also the Thearcha's daughter. Only she is worthy of the Son of Heaven. This is a bit strange. If the Son of Heaven is going to choose Yun Yao as his heavenly concubine, shouldn't he be filled with tenderness and happiness? Why does he look so disheartened? Everyone was secretly guessing, but they could not figure out Long Yunxiao's thoughts and decision. On the altar, Long Yunxiao did not speak. Instead, he secretly said to Yun Yao with his spiritual sense, "Yao Yao. Although I was destined to withdraw and give up from the moment I was defeated by Ji Tianqing's sword, after so many days, when I face you and want to tell you the result personally, I still feel like my heart is being twisted by a knife. It's hard for me to give up." Yun Yao looked at him calmly and asked with her spiritual sense, "So, you're going to go back on your word?" Long Yunxiao shook his head slightly and said solemnly, "No, as the Son of Heaven and the future the Arch, how can I go back on my word? Although only the three of us know about the agreement between Ji Tianqing and me. With my identity in the power of the imperial court, I can get rid of Ji Tianqing and force you to be my heavenly concubine. The world will not know about the twists and turns. But I can't do such a despicable thing. I can't face my conscience, and I can't face you." Hearing this, Yun Yao already knew his choice. She said sincerely, "Long Yunxiao, thank you. Letting go of the obsession in your heart is not only letting go of Tianqing and me, but also redeeming yourself." Long Yunxiao was silent for a moment. Then, he continued, "That's right. Only by letting go of the obsession can you let go of yourself. Love is not selfish possession, but sincere dedication. Maybe he loves you more than I do, or maybe he's the one arranged by the heavens for you. However, although I've withdrawn and given up, I still see you as my best friend. If that brat Ji Tianqing dares to wrong you, I won't be polite to him." After the sound transmission, Long Yunxiao expressionlessly announced in front of everyone, "Yun Yao is not my choice." When the people on the altar heard this, they immediately went into an uproar. Many people were astonished, not daring to believe this was true. At this time, Long Yunxiao had already walked in front of Ansuwen. Lan Huixin and Yun Yao had both been eliminated. The result was obvious. Ansuwen's heart was filled with joy and happiness. Tears welled up in her eyes. She never thought that she would receive such a huge surprise when she had already given up hope. Could it be that the Emperor has finally seen my feelings and sincerity and has been moved by me? Ansuwen looked up at Long Yunxiao and gazed deeply into his eyes. However, what she saw was a pair of cold and emotionless eyes. While she was still in a daze, she heard Long Yunxiao say indifferently, "Suwen, thank you for staying by my side and taking care of my injuries. I know that you've always wanted to become a heavenly consort. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish and choose you as my heavenly consort." After saying this, Long Yunxiao turned around and left expressionlessly. The result was decided. The guards of honor immediately played a celebratory song. Countless guests and princes also clapped and cheered. The Apocalypse Pagoda was filled with jubilation. Countless people smiled and discussed enthusiastically. Ansuwen, who should have been the happiest and the most excited, could not bring herself to be happy at all. She stood stiffly on the spot, looking at Long Yunxiao's back with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with sorrow, and her heart was throbbing with pain. She had finally become a heavenly consort. She had fulfilled her long-cherished wish and obtained the result she wanted. However, what she wanted was definitely not this process. Compared to the position of heavenly consort, what she wanted the most was the Emperor's heart. However, the result was like this. She could not refuse. She could only accept it. However, it was like a thorn in her heart. Chapter 551. Long Yunxiao stood expressionlessly on the open heaven altar, waiting for the imperial tutor to finish the rest of the ceremony. Ansuwen looked at him with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with bitterness and hesitation. Lan Huixin's eyes were filled with tears. She was sad that she had failed, but she was also very envious and jealous of Ansuan. Only Yunyao was calm. She was neither sad nor happy. In the crowd below the holy altar, Murong Lingfeng, who had been anxiously waiting, was now completely dumbfounded. He thought that the emperor would choose Yunyao as his heavenly consort. After all, the emperor had pursued Yunyao for many years. He was infatuated with Yunyao and had been secretly supporting the Yun family. No matter what, the emperor would choose Yunyao as his heavenly consort. This was a matter of course. Murong Lingfeng was still planning in his heart. Once the emperor's consort selection was over, he could openly pursue Ansuan. At that time, he would definitely use all of his abilities and all kinds of methods to make Ansuan stay in the central state, and then gradually capture her heart. However, the emperor chose Ansuan as his heavenly consort. To Murong Lingfeng, this was simply a bolt out of the blue, an enormous blow. After he regained his senses, his face twisted in anger. His eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. Long Yun Shao. You damn bastard. How dare you steal my Suan in front of everyone? So what if you're the emperor? One day, I will make you lose all standing and reputation and die without a burial ground to avenge today's grudge. Murong Lingfeng clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He roared in his heart. The pain of having his beloved taken away was like a sharp knife stabbing into his heart. It was unforgettable. The seed of hatred was buried deep in his heart. It was growing rapidly. However, this was the open heaven pagoda. The imperial tutor and many powerful cultivators were present. Murong Lingfeng did not dare to act up. He could only endure the humiliation and hide the hatred in his heart. Even if his teeth were broken, he had to swallow it down. A moment later, the hatred and murderous intent in his eyes disappeared. His eyes became cold and indifferent, and even a little empty and lifeless. After an unknown period of time, the concubine selection ceremony was finally completed. The emperor left the Apocalypse Pagoda with the new heavenly consort, Ansuan, under everyone's gaze. Yunyao and Lan Huixin also walked down the open heaven altar and left the top of the tower. The imperial tutor announced the end of the imperial concubine selection ceremony and told everyone that the imperial concubine and the imperial concubine would be officially married in 3 months. At that time, the imperial court would hold the conferring ceremony of the heavenly concubine and would invite all the guests to attend the ceremony again. Many guests silently noted down the time, thinking that the ceremony was over, and were about to leave. But at this moment, the imperial tutor announced another piece of news. Today, all the powerful beings of my race have gathered at the Apocalypse Pagoda. I have a second announcement to make. And this solemn and sacred matter concerns the safety and future of billions of people in the heavenly stellar region. More than 100 guests on the altar immediately stopped in their tracks. They looked at the imperial preceptor with sparkling eyes, their faces full of anticipation. Most of these guests were powerful beings and rulers of the human race. Among them were the overlords of the 8 southern regions, the heads of the ancient families, the city lords of the various cities in Middle Ground, and the leaders of many first-rate forces. Everyone could feel that the imperial tutor's attitude was solemn and serious. The news that he was about to announce would definitely be shocking. Indeed, the imperial tutor said solemnly, as everyone knows, the 8 regions of my race have the position of territorial lord. The 8 territorial lords manors respectively rule the 8 southern regions. They lead the various martial Dao sects and protect billions of people in hundreds of kingdoms. For the past 1,000 years, the southern regions have been peaceful and stable. The people have been living in peace and contentment, only the heavenly stellar region has never had a territorial lord. It is ruled and protected by the ancient realm of the stellar region. However, the heavenly stellar region is located in the south and is too far away from the imperial court. Even if the imperial court wants to protect it, it is too far away. Recently, there have been drastic changes in the ancient realm of the stellar region. We are unable to rule the heavenly stellar region and protect the people of the 10 nations. Many of the guests were powerhouses and superiors of the human race. Which one of them was not quick-witted and intelligent? Hearing the imperial tutor's words, everyone understood what he meant and guessed what he was about to announce. Suddenly, everyone was shocked and stared at him with their eyes wide open. The imperial tutor paused for a moment and looked around the room with a dignified gaze. He said slowly in a solemn tone, "In order to protect the peace of the heavenly stellar region and protect billions of people, the imperial court has decided to select a young powerhouse with both integrity and talent to be the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. In the next month, all the princes of my race who have reached the heavenly origin realm can register with the imperial court. In a month, the imperial court will select the candidates. The princes and the young powerhouses will compete for the position of the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region." When the imperial tutor's voice spread throughout the room, many of the guests were full of anticipation. The eyes of the princes were shining brightly. Their blood was boiling and their hearts were beating faster. Everyone secretly made up their minds to participate in this competition and work hard to become the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. If they could control the heavenly stellar region, they could control hundreds of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers and lead the people of the 10 nations. One of the 9 territorial lords of the human race. How noble and honorable was that? Thinking of this, many of the princes secretly clenched their fists and were eager to try. In particular, Duanmu Yulong and Murong Lingfeng were filled with excitement and impatience. Both of them knew very well that if they could become the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region, they would have more power and influence. They would strengthen their own families and completely suppress the other 2 families. Even Ji Tianqing's heart was full of desire and anticipation. Although he was not greedy for power, he came from the heavenly stellar region. His family, homeland, and sect were there. He also wanted to compete for the position of the territorial lord and control the heavenly stellar region in his own hands. Only then could he better protect his family, friends, and sect. If someone else became the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region and led the various sects and the 10 nations, who knew what the situation would be like? When the imperial tutor saw everyone's anticipation and enthusiasm, he could not help but reveal a look of satisfaction. He gave a few more speeches to end the ceremony. Then, he announced the end of the ceremony. After saying that, he flew into the sea of clouds in a flash and left with the wind. The ceremonial officer, hundreds of guards, and maids on the altar hurriedly bowed and saluted. Many guests also bowed and saluted, shouting, "Respectfully send off your highness imperial preceptor." After the imperial tutor left, the guests and princes on the altar left the top of the pagoda one after another. After they walked down the Apocalypse Pagoda, they were still discussing enthusiastically in groups. Some were discussing Ansuan becoming the heavenly consort, while others were discussing the selection of the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. In short, the 2 things that happened today shocked the 9 regions of the south and affected the entire human race. Please recommend me. Chapter 552. After a while, all the guests and princes left the Apocalypse Pagoda. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yiju followed the crowd down the Apocalypse Pagoda and walked out of the Palace of Heaven and Earth. In the square outside the Palace of Heaven and Earth, many guests were saying their goodbyes to each other. After the ceremony, the guests naturally had to leave the imperial court. Although they would come to the imperial court to attend the heavenly concubine's coronation ceremony, they had to wait for 3 months. However, they would have to wait for 3 months. They would only be able to come after receiving the imperial court's invitation. Not long after, the hundreds of guests said their goodbyes to each other and left the mountain peak one after another, walking down the mountain along the divine path. The princes from the imperial residence were not in a hurry to leave. Everyone was thinking about the competition for the Tianqian region lord, so they had to stay and watch. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yiju stood in the square and looked at the guests leaving. The princes around them started to talk softly. Junior brother Ji, I heard that you're from the Tianqian region. You can't miss the selection for the Tianqian region Lord, Ling Yiju said with a smile. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said calmly, of course, we have to compete. However, from the looks of it, those princes are all determined to obtain it. When the time comes, there will inevitably be a fierce battle. Ling Yiju smiled and nodded. That's right. After all, it's the competition for the region lord's position. Who doesn't want to fight for it? If they can become the region lord, they will be one of the most respected figures in our clan. They will have great power. Not to mention these princes, once the news spread out, who knew how many young experts would participate in the competition. Therefore, I won't join in the fun. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and was slightly surprised. He asked, Senior brother Ling, you won't join in the competition? Are you going to leave the imperial court and return to the imperial residence? No, no, no. Ling Yiju waved his hand and said with a playful smile, of course I'll stay. I'll wait to watch junior brother Ji fight for the region lord's position. Senior brother Ling, you must be joking. Ji Tianqing smiled and did not take Ling Yiju's words to heart. Ling Yichen was only joking and did not continue the topic. Junior brother Ji, since you've decided to participate in the competition, there's no need for you to return to the monarch estate. Let's go to the nearby Liantian city. That's the closest main city to the imperial court. Moreover, if you stay in Liantian city temporarily, you will be able to receive news from the imperial court faster, making it easier for you to act. Ji Tianqing hesitated for a moment and did not immediately agree. At this moment, a young woman in green who was dressed like a maid quickly walked up to him. The maid didn't say anything else. She just bowed to him and handed him an exquisite jade hairpin before turning around and leaving. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. He wanted to stop the maid and ask a few questions. But the maid left without looking back, apparently unwilling to divulge any information. Ji Tianqing withdrew his puzzled gaze and looked down at the jade hairpin in his hand. When he saw the appearance of the jade hairpin, he frowned. He immediately recognized the jade hairpin. It was the wind and fire wings that Yun Yao always wore in her hair. He gently twisted the wind and fire wings and took out a small silver piece of paper from it. There was a line of beautiful and spirited words written on the paper. Tianqing, I'll be waiting for you at Yunlan's residence in Liantian City. There was no doubt that this was Yun Yao's handwritten note. That graceful and light handwriting was definitely not something an ordinary woman could write. Ji Tianqing silently put away the note and the wind and fire wings. His eyes revealed a trace of a smile. I was just about to look for eldest senior sister when she sent someone to deliver a letter to me, he murmured in his heart and followed Ling Yichen out of the square in front of the hall and down the mountain. Ling Yichen glanced at him with a strange expression and joked, Junior brother Ji, a maid actually delivered a letter to you? Could it be that you have a date with a beautiful woman? TSK, I didn't know that junior brother Ji had such good luck with women. Ji Tianqing only raised his eyebrows and didn't explain anything. He calmly said, let's go. We'll go to Liantian City. Then, the two of them walked down Liantian Peak together. After leaving the imperial court, the two of them flew into the sky and rushed towards the northwest as fast as lightning. 500 miles northwest, at the edge of the Liantian mountain range, there was a bustling city with a radius of 100 miles. It was Liantian City. On the way, Ji Tianqing noticed that many guests and princes who had just left the imperial court were also rushing towards Liantian City like the two of them. Obviously, those guests and princes weren't willing to leave and wanted to stay in Liantian City temporarily to observe the situation. 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen entered Liantian City. After entering the city, the two of them parted ways. At a crossroad in the city, Ji Tianqing said to Ling Yichen, Senior brother Ling, I'm going to meet a friend. Goodbye. Ling Yichen nodded and said with a smile, all right. If you need anything, come to the Great Fortune Inn in the city to find me. After saying that, the two of them cupped their fists and bade farewell. They turned around and flew away. Ji Tianqing asked around in the city and quickly found the cloud mist courtyard. This courtyard that was 1,000 square meters in radius was built with a grand aura. It was luxurious and magnificent. There were a few magnificent palaces and a few quiet courtyards. There were also hundreds of guards and maids. The entire courtyard was protected by a defensive formation. There were many experts hidden in the courtyard. The security was very tight. Ji Tianqing sized up the cloud mist courtyard and guessed that this courtyard was most likely the property of the Cloud Spirit Palace. He walked towards the entrance and was immediately stopped by a few guards. After he revealed his identity, the guards immediately let him in. "Young Prince Tianqing, our young miss is waiting for you. Please follow me." One of the guards led the way and led him into the depths of the courtyard. Ji Tianqing followed the guard through a palace and 2 courtyards. He entered a palace called the Water Cloud Palace. The guard led him to the door of a secret room. After saying goodbye, he turned around and left. At the door of the secret room, there was a tall and thin woman in a black dress guarding it. She stared at Ji Tianqing. There was a hint of scrutiny in her eyes. Ji Tianqing stared at her and could not help but frown. He could naturally see that this ordinary-looking woman in black in her 30s was a powerhouse at the divine origin stage. Moreover, this woman had always been protecting Yunyao. She must be a trusted guard arranged by the Cloud Spirit Palace. The woman in black sized up Ji Tianqing before activating the formation on the door of the secret room. She cupped her hands and reported into the secret room, "Young miss, Ji Tianqing is here." Yun Yao's voice immediately came from the secret room. "Yun Luo, let him in." Yun Luo pushed open the stone door of the secret room and gestured for Ji Tianqing to enter. "Ji Tianqing, please come in." Chapter 553. Inside the dimly lit secret chamber, there were many gemstone lamps embedded in the walls, exuding a colorful glow. There was a spell formation in the middle of the secret chamber, and Yun Yao was sitting in the middle of the spell formation in a long white dress. Her long hair draped over her shoulders, and she sat with a calm expression. Her entire body was enveloped in a faint layer of colorful light, making her appear even more beautiful and otherworldly. When she saw Ji Tianqing enter the secret chamber, her calm and indifferent expression became much gentler. "Tianqing, you're here." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He walked in front of her and sat down across from her. "Yao Yao, I was just about to go find you after the ceremony ended, but I didn't expect you to have already made arrangements." As he spoke, he took out the wings of wind and fire from his spatial ring and handed them back to Yun Yao. Yun Yao accepted the jade hairpin and gathered her long hair into a bun before inserting the jade hairpin into her hair. "Before the heavenly prince chose his consort, it was inconvenient for us to meet in order to avoid criticism and unnecessary trouble for you. Now that the heavenly prince has chosen his heavenly consort, you and I are no longer restricted by this." Yun Yao stared at Ji Tianqing and said in a calm tone. The corner of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Ji Tianqing had the same thoughts as her and nodded in agreement. Now that the heavenly prince had chosen his heavenly consort, there were no longer any obstacles between him and Yun Yao. The last trace of worry in his heart also disappeared. After a moment of silence, he sighed with emotion. Long Yunxiao is indeed a gentleman. His words are law. I just didn't expect that he would be able to suppress his grief and choose Ensuan as his heavenly consort. I'm afraid no one expected this result. Yun Yao nodded and said calmly, Ensuan was born in a family of demon refiners. Although the Yin family is located in the south, it is also a prestigious family with a heritage of several hundred years. With Ensuan's background and talent, she is indeed a good match for Long Yunxiao. The two of them are a perfect match. I only hope that Long Yunxiao can let go of the past soon and accept and so on. Only then will he not be depressed and affect the situation in the imperial court. Yes. Ji Tianqing nodded and said solemnly, all right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let bygones be bygones. Yao Yao, after you left, the imperial tutor announced another piece of news. The imperial court wants to select a new leader for the Tianshan region. He told Yunyao everything about the territorial lord selection. Yunyao frowned and said seriously, this is very important. No matter who becomes the Tianshan region lord, it will affect the power structure of our clan. In my race, the imperial court is the leader and has the highest status. In terms of power and status, below the imperial court were the 3 ancient clans, followed by the 4 directions divine generals and the 8 region lords. Then there are the city lords of the various cities in central state, as well as the leaders of the first-rate forces. Ji Tianqing listened in silence, and had a clearer understanding of the power structure of the human race. Yunyao continued, the position of the Tianshan region lord is very honorable and important. Not only will the princes fight for it, but the princes of the imperial court and the young experts of the various clans and forces will also participate. The princes of the Murong and Duanmu clans will also not let go of this opportunity. Once they obtain the position of the Tianshan region lord, their power will increase exponentially. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, that's right. Many princes are determined to obtain the position of the Tianshan region lord. However, the imperial court will screen the people who sign up for the competition and will only announce the name list after a month. I come from the Tianshan region. My family and hometown are there, as well as our sect. Even if the chances are slim, I will try my best. Yunyao frowned and thought for a moment before nodding in agreement. Tianqing, I support you in competing for the position of the territorial lord. If you can become the Tianshan region lord, not only will you be able to protect your family and hometown, but you will also be able to protect our sect. The Sky Pillar sect has many things to do now, and it will take many years for it to gradually recover. If someone else becomes the Tianshan region lord, our sect will definitely be suppressed and ostracized. It might be very difficult for us to recover. I understand. Ji Tianqing nodded again and said solemnly, so, I will do my best. After a pause, he continued, Yao Yao, if it's possible, I would like you to help me investigate Ling Exian's identity. No problem. I will instruct Yun Luo later. Yunyao agreed without hesitation, then asked, Tianqing, why do you suddenly want to investigate him? Ji Tianqing explained, when I came to the imperial court, Ling Exian took the initiative to travel with me. On the way, we were attacked by 2 mysterious assassins. Although I killed one of the assassins, Ling Exian defeated the other one. However, I still haven't figured out who sent the 2 assassins. Yunyao raised her eyebrows and asked solemnly, Tianqing, are you suspecting Ling Exian? Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, I don't think he is someone who wants to deal with me, but he gives me a strange feeling. Now, we can only act cautiously and investigate all suspicious people. Yes, it should be so. Yunyao nodded slightly and agreed with his approach. She pondered for a moment, then said with a puzzled face, Tianqing, although you defeated Long Yunxiao in public and entered the monarch residence, you have been in the limelight recently. However, the major forces will only pay attention to you and won't send assassins to assassinate you. Who is it that can't wait to take your life? Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, I have also been puzzled and have no clue. Logically speaking, I made Long Yunxiao lose face and damaged the dignity of the imperial court. The one with the most reason to get rid of me should be the imperial court. However, Long Yunxiao and the imperial court won't do such a despicable thing. Besides, I have just arrived in the central state and have yet to become enemies with any forces. Who would want to kill me? Yunyao thought for a while in silence, then said in a deep voice, we are in the open while the enemy is in the dark. As the saying goes, there is only 1,000 days of being a thief, but not 1,000 days of guarding against thieves. We can't passively defend all the time. Tianqing, maybe we can take the initiative to attack and lure the enemy out, then capture them and interrogate them. Tianqing quickly nodded and said with a smile, yes, I have the same idea. However, the enemy is very alert and won't be fooled easily. We have to think of a good countermeasure. Yunyao thought for a moment and said, the enemy has lost a Sky Origin Realm assassin, so they might not take action in the next few days. Tianqing, you stay in Yunlan's courtyard and recuperate for a few days. After a few days, when the enemy relaxes their vigilance and can't hold back anymore, we will lure them out. Tianqing nodded with a smile and said, all right, we will do as you say. After discussing the plan, the two talked about some other trivial matters. Chapter 554. In the next few days, the consecutive city became even more lively and noisy. Hundreds of thousands of people were discussing the Imperial Court's concubine selection and the Imperial Court's selection of the Heavenly Stellar Region Lord. Many human powerhouses and more than 10 princes stayed in the consecutive city temporarily as they waited for the Imperial Court's news. Tianqing had been cultivating in the secret chamber in the Cloud Mist courtyard. He had not shown himself at all. The noise and disturbance in the outside world had nothing to do with him. Ever since he had advanced to the Heavenly Origin stage, the speed of his improvement had slowed down a lot. Even with the help of the Burial of Heaven to transfer a vast amount of energy to him, it took him a total of 5 days to increase his strength by 40%. This morning, his strength finally had a breakthrough and naturally reached the second level of the Heavenly Origin stage. Although it seemed to others that he had only advanced to the Heavenly Origin stage for about a month, he had advanced another level. Only he knew how much effort he had put in to increase his strength. Early in the morning, he finished his cultivation and opened his eyes. The heavenly levitation orb that Master gave me back then contained 400 years of Master Qing Tian's energy. The vast amount of energy allowed me to advance from the 5th level of the Origin Core stage to the 2nd level of the Heavenly Origin stage within a few months. It also allowed the Burial of Heaven to recover 20% of his strength. After a few months of consumption, the 400 years of energy has been completely depleted. From now on, the speed of my improvement will be even slower and more difficult. Tianqing thought to himself with a solemn expression on his face. After a while, he stood up and walked out of the secret chamber. He entered the Shui Yun Palace to look for Yunyao. Yunyao had also been cultivating in seclusion for 5 days. Her strength had improved by quite a bit. After the two of them met, they chatted for a while before they left the Cloud Mist courtyard together and walked out of the consecutive city. Tianqing, the Cloud Mist courtyard is guarded by powerhouses. There are also many guards and formations. The assassins hiding in the dark won't dare to act rashly. Since that's the case, we'll take the initiative to attack and lure them out of the city. I've already arranged for Yun Luo to follow us secretly and be ready to support us at any time. While rushing out of Sky-Piercing City, Yunyao didn't forget to use her spiritual sense to inform Tianqing of the situation. Tianqing listened quietly and walked side by side with her on the street. On the surface, they seemed to be strolling, but in fact, they were secretly paying attention to the situation around them. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed quickly. Tianqing and Yunyao passed through the towering North City Gate and left Liantian City. Outside the city was a vast mountain range. Nearby, there was a green grassland. In the distance, there were dark green mountains. They were like huge dark brown dragons lying between heaven and earth. Tianqing and Yunyao crossed a mountain peak and soon disappeared into the mountains. The two of them advanced in the mountains at a leisurely pace, as if they were on a scenic tour, appearing very leisurely and comfortable. However, an entire hour passed, and the mysterious assassin did not appear. On the top of a mountain in front of him, several figures entered Tianqing's vision. Although they were separated by a few kilometers, he was still able to see the scene at the top of the mountain. He saw 5 men with ferocious auras surrounding 4 men and women, and they were shouting and cursing at something in an arrogant manner. "Let's go over and take a look." Ji Tianqing flapped his golden wings and pulled Yun Yao to fly through the sky, and he flew swiftly like a flowing light towards the top of the mountain. When the two of them descended on the top of the mountain, they saw the appearance of the 2 groups of people clearly and heard their voices. Amongst the 5 men with ferocious auras, there were 4 middle-aged men, and they were all experts at the 7th or 8th level of the origin core stage. These 4 people were dressed like attendants and guards, and they clustered around a young man in luxurious clothes. The young man wore a long embroidered robe, had greasy hair and a powdered face, and his entire body emitted an arrogant aura that held his head high. He was obviously an ignorant and incompetent profligate disciple, yet he insisted on wearing a jade crown and holding a folding fan in his hand, and he made the appearance of an elegant young master. In the other group of people, there were 3 men and a woman. 3 of the middle-aged men wore black robes and held treasured swords that flickered with cold lights in their hands, and they joined forces to protect a pure and beautiful woman. These 4 people were all dignified, and they were obviously martial artists from reputable sects with a single glance. But unfortunately, the 3 black-robed men only had a strength at the 6th level of the origin core stage. Whereas the peerless beauty that was protected by them only had a strength at the 5th level of the origin core stage. Both sides were in a deadlock on the empty space at the top of the mountain, and the 3 black-robed martial artists wanted to protect the peerless beauty and leave, yet they were utterly unable to free themselves. The profligate young man fanned himself with a folding fan in his hand, and his eyes glowed as he stared at the peerless beauty with a covetous appearance. A malicious smile hung on his face, and he said with a frivolous tone, "Miss Lan, this young master has heard of your name since long ago, and I've always wanted to see your beautiful face. Today, I've finally accomplished my wish. Sky City is this young master's territory, and since Miss Lan has come here, how could you leave hastily? Miss Lan, please do me the honor and come to this young master's mansion as a guest, and this young master will definitely treat you well." Ha 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 ha. Lan Huixin did not open her mouth to speak, but the 3 black-robed martial artists shouted angrily, "Fourth young master Qin, we have no enmity with you, so why are you so aggressive? We're temporarily staying in Sky City, but you're always pestering Miss Lan. Now that we've been forced to leave Sky City, you still chased us here. How can you be so shameless? Aren't you just coveting our sex Miss Lan's beauty? Miss Lan is a heavenly concubine candidate, so how can you pursue her?" The profligate young man who was called 4th young master Qin instantly grinned and sneered ferociously. "Huh, you 3 brainless geese. You're only the deacons of the vast sky sect, and you're nothing in front of this young master. Previously in the city, this young master did not fuss with you because of my status and face. But now that we're out of Sky City, you still dare to talk to this young master like this. You really don't know what's good for you." After sneering, a murderous intent flashed in 4th young master Qin's eyes. He ordered the 4 guards behind him, "Go. Kill those 3 stupid donkeys." The 4 guards immediately sneered ferociously and emitted a chilling murderous intent. They waved their swords and pounced on the 3 black-robed deacons. Bam! 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 Dozens of dazzling sword radiances lit up and blew up a gust of wind on the mountain peak, causing a series of muffled sounds. After exchanging a few blows, the 3 black-robed deacons were sent flying and fell on the grass with blood all over their bodies. The 4 guards swarmed forward again and slashed out dozens of sword radiances with their sabers and swords, drowning the 3 black-robed deacons. Suddenly, blood splattered everywhere on the grass, and huge gullies were formed on the ground, causing sand and dust to splatter everywhere. The disparity in strength between the 2 sides was too great, and the 3 black-robed deacons could not stop the 4 guards at all. They were all killed in a moment. Lan Huixin, who was wearing a long brocade dress, was enraged when she saw the 3 deacons being killed on the spot. "4th young master Qin, you beast. I'll fight it out with you." Lan Huixin's heart was filled with tears as she cried out in despair. She waved her sword and charged toward fourth young Master Qin. However, she had only taken a few steps when she was stopped by two guards. Swoosh! The sword in her hand was snatched away, and the acupuncture points on her neck and back were sealed. Suddenly, her body stiffened and she was rooted to the ground, unable to move. Fourth young Master Qin walked in front of her with a smile and caressed her delicate face. He said proudly, "Lan Huixin, the emperor doesn't want you, but I'm willing to marry you. For a lowly person from the southern land like you, it's your fortune that this young master has taken a liking to your beauty. If you know what's good for you, you'll obey me obediently, and I can even give you the status of a legal wife. If you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for using force on you." Chapter 555. Lan Huixin stood stiffly on the grass as she looked at the fourth young Master Qin in front of her. Her heart was filled with despair. After leaving the imperial court, she wanted to stay in Liantian city for a while to see if she could get close to the emperor. However, she didn't expect the fourth young Master Qin to have his eyes on her. The fourth young Master Qin was mesmerized by her beauty and harassed her every day and night, trying to get her. She couldn't stand the harassment and could only leave Liantian city quietly with the three attendants. However, the fourth young Master Qin chased after her and wouldn't stop until he got her. Now that the three attendants were killed and she had fallen into the fourth young Master Qin's hands, she couldn't resist at all. The Eternal Heaven sect was the #1 sect in the Eternal Heaven region. However, none of her elders could save her. Her identity as the top disciple of the Eternal Heaven sect couldn't intimidate the arrogant fourth young Master Qin. Lan Huixin had always thought that with her beauty, she would definitely marry a noble genius like the Son of Heaven. However, she was now in the fourth young Master Qin's hands and couldn't do anything. She was filled with grief and despair when she thought about how she would soon be taken by the fourth young Master Qin and become his plaything. Unfortunately, at this moment, there was no response to her cries. She couldn't even commit suicide. "Fourth young Master Qin, you bastard. Even if I die, I won't let a bastard like you taint my innocence." Lan Huixin glared at the fourth young Master Qin. Her eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. However, the fourth young Master Qin wasn't angry. He looked at her with a smile and praised, "Tisk tsk, you're indeed a peerless beauty. Even when you're angry, you're still so alluring." As he spoke, he quickly waved his hand and ordered the guards behind him. "Hurry up and bring this young master's little beauty back. This young master can't wait to enjoy her, he. However, just as he was laughing evilly, a bone-chilling shout came from behind him. "There's actually such a despicable bastard near the Holy Imperial Court in broad daylight and doing such a heinous deed." It was the cold voice of a woman. Her tone was filled with anger and killing intent. Fourth young Master Qin quickly turned his head and looked behind him. With one look, his eyes immediately widened, and a strong sense of amazement surged in his eyes. In the forest at the edge of the open space, a pair of peerlessly beautiful young man and woman were walking out side by side. The woman who spoke was dressed in a long white dress. She was a beautiful woman with a cold and otherworldly temperament. If Lan Huixin was said to be a peerless beauty in the mortal world, then this white-clothed beauty was an immortal in the heavens, an otherworldly fairy. There's actually such a beautiful woman in this world. Fourth young Master Qin was stunned. His eyes widened as he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Without a doubt, the young man and woman with noble bearings were Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. The two of them stepped across the grass and walked towards the center of the field with cold expressions. Ji Tianqing glanced coldly at fourth young Master Qin, and it instantly scared fourth young Master Qin to the point his body trembled, and a chill ran down his back. However, Ji Tianqing ignored him and turned to look at the four guards who were stunned on the spot and didn't know what to do. "Those who kill will be killed." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his left hand with an indifferent expression, and a golden spirit light gushed out from his palm. Swish! 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 He seemed to casually wave his hand, and 4 enormous golden sword lights shot towards the 4 guards with a bang. The auras of the 4 guards were locked onto by the 5-meter-long sword lights, and they instantly felt a chill run down their bodies as if they felt the arrival of death. Their faces were filled with fear as they subconsciously used their light body movement techniques to retreat as fast as lightning. However, the 4 golden sword lights were like flowing lights that instantly streaked across the sky and fiercely pierced them. Bang! 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 The 4 guards at the 7th and 8th level of the Origin Core stage didn't have the chance to dodge or block at all, and they were penetrated by the golden sword lights on the spot. Their bodies exploded with a bang, and blood splattered all over the sky and splattered onto the grass. In just a short span of a breath, the 4 ferocious guards were instantly killed just like that and turned into pieces that scattered all over the ground. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing didn't even blink. His expression was indifferent, and his movements were casual as if he was swatting a few mosquitoes to death. Seeing this scene, the 4th young Master Qin's eyes widened on the spot, and his face was filled with terror. His body stiffened on the spot, and his back quietly broke out in cold sweat. Although the 4th young Master Qin was despicable and foppish, he wasn't stupid. He immediately realized that the white-robed young man who was like a god of death must be a Sky Origin stage powerhouse. His 4 guards were instantly killed by the white-robed young man, and he absolutely wouldn't be able to block a single move from the white-robed young man, not even a single finger of the white-robed young man. When he thought of this, his heart clenched tightly, and he hurriedly racked his brains to think of a countermeasure. At this moment, Ji Tianqing looked at him with an indifferent gaze. The 4th young Master Qin was instantly frightened, and without waiting for him to speak, he shouted angrily, "Kid, do you know who I am? I'm the son of the Liantian city governor, the 4th young master of the Qin clan. If you dare to lay your hands on me, my father will not let you off." The 4th young Master Qin was smart because he had always been tyrannical and oppressive in Liantian city. He would never go to other places to stir up trouble. Every time he met a troublesome person, he would immediately announce his identity and use the name of his father, the Liantian city governor. In this way, most people were afraid of the Liantian city governor's identity, and wouldn't make things difficult for him. This was a tried and tested method, and the 4th young Master Qin had already developed the habit of relying on someone else's might. It was a pity that he met Ji Tianqing today, and he was destined to meet a tragic end. The son of the Liantian city governor. No wonder you're so tyrannical and ruthless. Ji Tianqing frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The 4th young Master Qin thought there was a chance for him to turn the situation around, and he said arrogantly, "Kid, no matter who you are, I won't pursue the matter of you killing my guards. If you know what's good for you, you'd better leave this place immediately, or else." Before he could finish his words, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a ray of golden light. Smack! The golden light turned into a palm and slapped the 4th young Master Qin's face, sending him flying backward and spitting out blood as he fell on the grass. When he got up from the ground, half of his face was swollen like a pig's head, and half of his teeth were gone. "Kid! You've gone too far." The 4th young Master Qin covered his bleeding mouth and roared furiously, "How dare you not give face to the Liantian city governor? Do you dare to tell me your name? I'm Ji Tianqing from the imperial residence." Ji Tianqing looked at him indifferently and waved his hand again to shoot out a ray of golden light. Swoosh! The golden light turned into a sharp sword and pierced through the 4th young Master Qin's abdomen, crushing his filthy and evil root into pieces, causing a rain of blood to burst out. Chapter 556. Ah! You damn bastard! How dare you cut off my bloodline? The 4th young Master Qin was lying on the ground, rolling on the ground in pain as he let out a heart-wrenching scream. However, no matter how miserable he screamed, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Lan Huixin wouldn't pity him at all. Ji Tianqing glanced at him indifferently and shouted coldly, "Get lost." The fourth young master Qin didn't dare to stay any longer. He endured the pain and quickly got up from the ground, limping away. He held back his anger and killing intent as he ran 100 meters away in a panic. Then, he turned around and glared at Ji Tianqing with resentment. "Ji! God! Fine! I'll remember you. How dare you cut off my family jewels? I'll make sure you die without a burial place." The fourth young master Qin knew very well that since the other party wasn't afraid of his father, the Liantian city governor, he had the right to look down on Liantian city. Moreover, the other party was a Sky Origin stage powerhouse who could kill him with a flip of his palm. Therefore, he temporarily suppressed his anger and didn't curse Ji Tianqing. He also didn't say any harsh words. He only roared twice in his heart and remembered today's grudge. Then, he quickly ran away from the mountain peak in the direction of Liantian city. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao ignored the fourth young master Qin and calmly walked toward Lan Huixin. Lan Huixin's acupuncture points were sealed, and her body was stiff as she stood there. When she saw Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao walking toward her, she was in disbelief. At the critical moment, someone actually saved her and saved her from the clutches of the devil. Naturally, she was pleasantly surprised and grateful. However, when she recognized Yun Yao, her mood became very complicated as countless thoughts flashed through her mind. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao arrived in front of her. Yun Yao stared at Lan Huixin and observed her for a while. Then, she stretched out her finger and poked a few times on her body to help her unseal her acupuncture points. Lan Huixin finally regained her freedom of movement. She immediately cried like a pear blossom in the rain and bowed to Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao to thank them. "Thank you, young master and sister Yun Yao, for saving my life. If it weren't for the two of you, I really wouldn't have the face to live in this world anymore." Lan Huixin's Yun Yao's voice was soft and timid. She looked really pitiful and pitiful. Yun Yao reached out to support her arm and asked doubtfully, "Miss Lan, it's nothing much. It's not worth mentioning. You, on the other hand, why are you being pestered by that hedonistic young master? And why did you have a conflict here?" Lan Huixin took out a white handkerchief and wiped the tears from her pretty face and eyes. She explained with a choked voice, "Sister Yun Yao, after the Great Hall ended that day, I left the imperial court and went to Liantian city to stay temporarily with the 3 deacons of my sect. Who would have thought that fourth young master Qin, that evil scoundrel, heard the news from somewhere and found the inn I was staying at and harassed me in every way possible." Lan Huixin explained the cause and process of the matter in full detail to him. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao finally understood the whole story. Yun Yao's pretty face was cold. She still cursed with anger, "That evil scoundrel really deserves to die. He relied on his father's power and ran amok in the city. Miss Lan, you were once a heavenly consort candidate, but he still dared to treat you like this. You can imagine how arrogant and despotic that evil scoundrel usually is in Liantian city. The punishment that Tianqing gave him just now was also a taste of his own medicine. He deserved it." After saying that, Yun Yao opened her mouth to comfort Lan Huixin a few more words. Only then did her emotions calm down. Ji Tianqing stood at the side and waited silently. He didn't say anything. Lan Huixin was a beautiful woman and had been with Yun Yao for some time. The two of them could be considered acquaintances. Now that such a thing had happened, as a man, he couldn't say anything. Yun Yao was naturally the best choice to comfort Lan Huixin. After a while, when Lan Huixin's mood stabilized, Yun Yao said, "Miss Lan, the Great Hall has already ended. Liantian City is a place of trouble. I'm afraid it's not suitable for you to stay here. Why don't you return to the Long Heaven region? That evil scoundrel only dares to run amok in Liantian city. He might not dare to go to the long heaven region. Hearing Yun Yao's persuasion, Lan Huixin shook her head and said with grievance and fear, "Elder sister Yun Yao, I can't stay in the imperial court in Liantian city. But I don't dare to go back to the long heaven region. The 3 deacons who accompanied me were killed. I'm all alone and weak. If I want to go back to the long heaven region from the central region, I'm afraid I'll enter the tiger's den after leaving the dragon's den." Yun Yao was silent and couldn't continue to persuade her. Of course, she understood the principle of femme fatale and had a deep understanding of it. After the emperor's concubine selection, Lan Huixin's name would definitely spread throughout the central region and the southern region. For such a delicate and weak beauty like her, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens if she wanted to return to the long heaven region alone. There were countless people with evil intentions who wanted to do dirty things to her. If she really left alone, she would be kidnapped by evil people before she could leave the central region. Seeing that Yun Yao was silent, Lan Huixin continued, "Elder sister Yun, our long heaven region is quite poor and backward among the 9 regions. Before I came to participate in the emperor's concubine selection, the region lord and the elders of my sect had high hopes for me and asked me to become a heavenly concubine. Only when I become a heavenly concubine can the long heaven region get the support of the emperor and the imperial court and prosper. So, before I came to the central region, the region lord and the elders of my sect forced me to train day and night for several months just to win the favor of the emperor. Now that I failed to complete the task, I don't have the face to return to the long heaven region and I don't dare to go back to face the region lord and the elders of my sect. I don't know how they will punish me." Lan Huixin's tone was very gloomy and full of fear and anxiety, which made people sympathize with her. Yun Yao deeply sympathized with her words and could understand her mood. She couldn't help but nod and say, "When I was in the heavenly stellar region, the sect masters of the various sects also treated me like that. They were eager for me to become a heavenly concubine and bring prosperity to the heavenly stellar region. Those people sacrificed the happiness of others for their own selfish interests. They are really abominable." Lan Huixin nodded, but then shook her head and said with a miserable expression, "Yes, those people are indeed abominable. But I'm different from you, elder sister Yun. You were born in a noble and ancient family. Even if you don't become a heavenly concubine, you're still the Yun family's legitimate daughter, the princess of the monarch mansion, a first-class noble figure in the continent. But I'm as lowly as a weed on the side of the road. Even a young master of the city lord's family can bully me at will." Speaking of the sad part, Lan Huixin couldn't help but burst into tears and was heartbroken. Yun Yao was a bit emotional, but there was nothing she could do. Everyone had their own fate. Who could change it? Lan Huixin pinched her sleeves and hesitated for a while. Then, she mustered her courage and said, "Elder sister Yun, there's no place for me in the central region now. Although the long heaven region is my sect and hometown, I can't return to my home." Chapter 557. Originally, Lan Huixin was such a beautiful woman, and she was also the #1 young genius in the long heaven domain. Even if she did not become a heavenly consort, she was still a top genius beauty who could make all the major forces of the human race scramble for her, and she was admired and pursued by countless young talents. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao did not expect that she would put down her dignity and follow Yun Yao to seek protection. Yun Yao was stunned, and for a moment, she did not know whether to agree or refuse. Ji Tianqing frowned and quickly reminded Yun Yao with his holy sense, "Yao Yao, we are in a dangerous situation now, and we can't even protect ourselves. How can we protect her? If we take her with us, not only will it be inconvenient, but it will also cause unnecessary trouble." Ji Tianqing was not afraid of trouble, but there was no need to find trouble for an irrelevant person. He had nothing to do with Lan Huixin, and it was already a moral act to save her. Yun Yao certainly understood this, so she frowned and thought about it. Lan Huixin was indeed a beautiful woman with a pure heart. Seeing Yunyao remain silent, she guessed that she was hesitating. So, Lan Huixin cried with a sad face and begged pitifully, "Sister Yun, I know my request is a little too much, but I really have no way out. If big sister Yun disdains my lowly status, I'm willing to be your servant girl and serve you by your side. I don't have any other requests. I just want to stay by your side and use your name to intimidate those evil people." Lan Huixin pulled Yun Yao's sleeves with both hands and begged with tears running down her face. She almost knelt down on the spot. Now that things had come to this, how could Yun Yao refuse? She was a person who looked as cold as ice on the surface, but was actually a kind person. In the face of Lan Huixin's humble begging, she could not and did not have the heart to refuse. So, Yun Yao reached out to hold Lan Huixin's arms, helped her up, and comforted her softly, "Miss Lan, you don't have to do this. I promise you. You don't have to be my maidservant. In the future, you can stay by my side and we can call each other sisters." After getting Yun Yao's permission, Lan Huixin's tears turned into smiles. Her pretty face was filled with excitement as she hurriedly bowed and thanked her. "This little sister has no way to repay big sister Yun's kindness in taking me in. I can only remember it in my heart and repay it slowly." Yun Yao helped her up, indicating that she didn't need to be so polite, and comforted her. Ji Tianqing stood to the side and watched silently. His expression was calm, and he did not interrupt. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. Lan Huixin was the #1 genius of the Long Heaven domain, a proud daughter of heaven. She shouldn't be so weak. However, he couldn't be too heartless and cruelly reject Lan Huixin. Moreover, Lan Huixin was begging Yun Yao, not him. How could he refuse on behalf of Yun Yao? Now that things had come to this, he could only wait and see. At this time, Yun Yao said, "All right, we can't stay here for long. Let's go back to Liantian City first." Lan Huixin naturally nodded and said cleverly, "I'll follow big sister Yun's arrangement." Then, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Lan Huixin turned around and left the mountain peak, rushing back to Liantian City. After half an hour, the three of them returned to Yunlan's courtyard. Yun Yao arranged for Lan Huixin to stay in a quiet and secluded small courtyard for her to rest for the time being. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or Yun Yao's intention, but the small courtyard where Lan Huixin stayed was right next to Ji Tianqing's residence. In the fresh and elegant room, Lan Huixin sat alone in front of the dressing table and stared at herself in the bronze mirror. At this time, she no longer looked weak and weeping like before. Her face was calm and indifferent, and her eyes showed that she was pondering. She thought to herself, "Although I don't know why the Son of Heaven chose Suwen as his heavenly consort. However, who doesn't know that the person the Son of Heaven truly loves is Yun Yao? I definitely won't give up. As long as I stay by Yun Yao's side, I'll have a chance to come into contact with the Son of Heaven. In the long run, perhaps I'll be able to attract the Son of Heaven's attention and make him have a good impression of me. Then, I'll still have a chance." When she thought of this, the corners of Lan Huixin's mouth curled up into a smile. In Liantian City, inside the luxurious and vast city lord's mansion. Fourth young Master Qin returned to the mansion covered in blood, instantly scaring the group of guards out of their wits. When everyone saw that his head was swollen like a pig's head and that his body was covered in blood, they immediately swarmed over and surrounded him. Someone asked him about his condition with a face full of fear, someone hurriedly checked on his injuries, and someone hurriedly reported the news to the city lord, informing the city lord's mansion's apothecary to treat fourth young Master Qin's injuries. A large group of guards, servants, and maidservants anxiously busied themselves, causing a huge commotion in the mansion. After half an hour, 2 apothecaries from the city lord's mansion temporarily treated fourth young Master Qin's injuries. At the same time, the news of fourth young Master Qin's family jewels being destroyed spread like wildfire in the city lord's mansion. Fourth young Master Qin didn't rest. Bearing with the humiliation and pain, he limped to city lord Qin Zheng's study room, intending to complain to Qin Zheng. However, there were 2 bodyguards guarding the door of the study and they stopped him. "Fourth young master, please wait. Fourth young master, the city lord is having a private discussion with a distinguished guest in the study room. It's inconvenient to disturb him." 2 guards wearing black armor stretched out their hands and blocked 4th young master Qin's path. 4th young master Qin immediately flew into a rage. As he cursed, he lifted his leg to kick the 2 guards. "Bastard! Do you want to die? I've been severely injured by someone, and I need to report this to my father. Why aren't you guys scram?" However, just as he was about to lift his leg, a tearing pain came from his abdomen, causing his face to turn pale and distorted as he sucked in a breath of cold air. Seeing that 4th young master Qin's head was swollen like a pig's head and in unbearable pain, the 2 guards were stunned. They didn't understand what had happened. 4th young master Qin couldn't be bothered to explain to them. He reached out to push open the door of the study room and limped in. "Father! You must seek justice for me. Just now, an adulterous couple humiliated me and severely injured me. They even destroyed my family jewels." As soon as he entered the study room, 4th young master Qin shouted with grief and indignation. His tone was filled with rage and grievance. In the exquisite and elegant study room, 2 dignified men were discussing something. Behind the large study table sat a young man wearing a golden robe and a 7-star purple gold crown. This man was tall and burly, and his face was handsome and resolute. He exuded a powerful and noble aura. His red phoenix eyes, which were as bright as the stars, contained an indescribable power and dominance that made people not dare to look at him directly. The other person was a middle-aged man wearing a purple robe. He wore a feathered crown on his head and a jade belt on his waist. He had a dignified aura. However, compared to the golden-robed young man's aura, he was far inferior. The middle-aged man stood respectfully beside the study table and was reporting something to the golden-robed young man. His tone was low and solemn. The 2 of them were discussing something important when the study room door was suddenly pushed open. Their conversation was immediately interrupted. The middle-aged man turned his head subconsciously and glared at 4th young master Qin, who had barged into the study room. He shouted in a deep voice, "Feng, don't be presumptuous." After saying that, he looked at the golden-robed young man in fear and trepidation. He quickly bowed and apologized. "Third Prince, my son is ignorant and didn't mean to offend you. Please be magnanimous." The golden-robed young man raised his eyebrows but didn't show any anger. He glanced at 4th young master Qin indifferently and looked back at the letter in his hand. The middle-aged man secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly scolded 4th young master Qin in a deep voice, "Feng, what are you waiting for? Come and greet His Highness the 3rd Prince." Chapter 558. Although Qin Feng bowed respectfully, the 3rd Prince did not even look at him. Obviously, the 3rd Prince did not put this hedonistic young ruffian in his eyes and was too lazy to pay attention to him. He still looked down at the letter in his hand and said indifferently, "Qin Zheng, deal with your family affairs first, then we can talk about business." Qin Zheng quickly saluted and said respectfully, "I'll follow the 3rd Prince's order." After saying that, he turned to look at Qin Feng and asked with a dignified expression, "Feng, what happened? Who was so arrogant and dared to attack you in Liantian City and beat you up like this?" Seeing his father's anxious expression and worried eyes, Qin Feng immediately calmed down and had confidence. Without hesitation, he made up a lie and said, "Father, today I brought 4 of my trusted guards to the mine in the Boundless Mountains to supervise. Who knew that not long after I entered the vast mountains, I met a young man and a young woman. The 2 of them seemed to have an extraordinary status and were very powerful. They had an arrogant attitude. After they saw me, the white-robed young man attacked me without any explanation and killed my 4 guards in one move. I told them my identity and used your name, but the white-robed young man not only did not show any mercy but also severely injured me and destroyed my manhood. What? Hearing this, Qin Zheng's expression changed drastically, revealing a furious expression. Although he had many children, Qin Feng was not the only one who could carry on the family line. But the other party knew that Qin Feng was his son and still dared to destroy Qin Feng. This was simply the biggest insult and provocation to him. Seeing that his father was furious, Qin Feng continued, "Father, that white-robed young man is not only ruthless and vicious, but also extremely arrogant and conceited. He even said that the son of the Liantian city lord was nothing. Even if the Liantian city lord came, he would still beat him up." Qin Zheng became even more furious. Blue veins bulged on his forehead and his eyes were filled with anger. Preposterous. This is simply too much. Feng, that damn bastard, did he leave his name? Where did he come from? How dare he humiliate a descendant of the Qin clan like this? Qin Feng thinks for a while and says with a frown, "Father, that white-robed young man reported his name and said he came from the monarch mansion. I think his name is Ji Tianqing." The monarch mansion. Qin Zheng's body shook, and his expression froze. His expression changed rapidly. He was filled with anger and killing intent, but he was scared into silence by the words monarch mansion. At the same time, the third prince, who had been looking down at the letter, suddenly frowned. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Ji Tianqing. He muttered to himself as his lips curled into a cold smile. Qin Feng saw the sudden change in his father's expression and his hesitant look. He asked doubtfully, "Father, is that little bastard's background very big? Could it be that he is a prince from one of the royal palaces?" Hearing this, Qin Zheng almost vomited blood from anger. He fiercely glared at Qin Feng and scolded, "Bastard! You usually only know how to indulge in debauchery, ignorant and incompetent, but you're actually so stupid. Do you think the monarch mansion is an ordinary royal palace? That is the holy land of martial arts in Zhongzhou City, the monarch mansion where the princes of various clans gather." Qin Feng immediately came to his senses and said with a face full of horror, "Prince? That monarch mansion? It's over. That little bastard must be the prince of the monarch mansion. No wonder his strength is so terrifying." After understanding Ji Tianqing's identity, Qin Feng was instantly filled with fear. His face was gloomy as if he had lost his parents. Although he was the son of the Liantian city governor, he was like a mud worm in the ground and an eagle in the sky when compared to the noble prince. Even his father, Qin Zheng, had to be humble and respectful in front of the prince. However, the piercing pain in his abdomen made his chest burn with anger. His eyes became ferocious and resentful. He unwillingly asked Qin Zheng, "Father, so what if he is the prince? He was so arrogant that he even cut off my roots. Could it be that we're still going to endure such humiliation and hatred? No. I can't accept this, I can't take this lying down. No one has ever dared to humiliate me like this." Qin Zheng frowned and said in a low voice, "Feng, don't be impatient. This is not a trivial matter. Let me think about it. That guy called Ji Tianqing is in the limelight recently and is very troublesome, but don't worry, even if he is the noble prince, he shouldn't humiliate my son like this. This is a great humiliation, I will never let it go." After getting Qin Zheng's promise, Qin Feng felt a little relieved and nodded silently. Qin Zheng waved his hand and said to him, "Feng, you can leave first. Don't worry about your injuries. I still have to discuss important matters with the third prince." "As you command." Qin Feng hurriedly bows and salutes the third prince. He then turns around and leaves the study. After he left, the study became quiet. At this time, the third prince put down the letter in his hand and looked at Qin Zheng with a faint smile. He said in a playful tone, "Qin Zheng, your forbearance really surprised me." Qin Zheng's old face suddenly turned red and he said awkwardly, my son is naughty and mischievous. It's not that I don't want to avenge my son, but the imperial residence is too sacred. Those princes are noble and unparalleled. How could I dare to do anything to them? The third prince frowned and said in a cold voice, Ji Tianqing, that boy, can't represent the imperial residence. This boy comes from the southern Tianshan region and is just a lowly commoner. He has just entered the imperial residence and has no background or foundation. If he is in Zhongzhou city, he can act like a tyrant with the name of the imperial residence. But this is Liantian city, under the foot of my clan's imperial court. It is your territory. How can you allow him to be so arrogant? Hearing the third prince's words, Qin Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He understood what the third prince meant. He thought to himself, that's right. I was so angry just now that I neglected this point. That Ji Tianqing is a nobody. Not long ago, he defeated the emperor in front of everyone, so he was qualified to enter the imperial residence. Ji Tianqing made the emperor lose face and damaged the reputation of the imperial court. No wonder the third prince is so hostile to him. In this case, the third prince supports me to avenge Feng Er. Thinking of this, Qin Zheng bowed to the third prince and asked respectfully, Third prince, please advise me. The third prince looked at him indifferently and said slowly, no one dares to fight against the imperial residence, and no one dares to kill the crown prince openly. However, in your territory, you are in the right. Even if you secretly get rid of that prince, as long as you don't leave any evidence, the imperial residence can't do anything to you. Of course, this is between you and Ji Tianqing. Whether you want to avenge him or not is up to you. As for what to do, you can slowly think about it. Chapter 559. After the third prince finished speaking, he stopped talking about this matter and got up to leave the study. Qin Zheng understood what he meant and had a plan in his heart. He respectfully sent the third prince out of the city lord's mansion. After the third prince left, Qin Zheng returned to the study and sat in front of the table. He frowned and fell into deep thought. After thinking for a moment, he said in a low voice, "Come in." One of the two guards guarding outside the study immediately walked into the study and came before Qin Zheng. He cupped his hands and bowed, "Sir City Lord, please give your orders." Qin Zheng ordered in a dignified voice, "Immediately send someone to investigate Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. Find out where he is as soon as possible." "Yes, sir." The guard did not say much. He quickly turned and walked out of the study to carry out the order. Only Qin Zheng was left in the study and it suddenly became silent. He frowned and his eyes flashed with cold killing intent. He muttered to himself, "He's just a commoner without an aristocratic background. So what if he entered the emperor's mansion? Does he really think that after becoming the emperor, he is unparalleled and no one dares to offend him? This person dares to offend the emperor and the imperial court. He really doesn't know what's good for him. Since the third prince ordered me to act, I must get rid of this guy. At that time, not only can I avenge Feng Er, but I can also ask for credit from the third prince and the imperial court. My status will definitely rise by a lot. As long as I do it well and the imperial court protects me, even the emperor's mansion can't do anything to me." Humph. Speaking of this, Qin Zheng coldly snorted and secretly clenched his fists. Half a day passed quickly. Under the dark night, Qin Zheng sat in the dimly lit study and quietly waited for news. After a while, a guard in black armor entered the study and came in front of him. He bowed and reporting to the city lord, "I have the results of the investigation." Qin Zheng raised his eyebrows and quickly said, "What's the situation? Speak quickly." The black-armored guard said in a low voice, reporting to the city lord, "That kid is still in the city. He is living in the Yunlan courtyard." Yunlan courtyard? Qin Zheng frowned and said in a serious tone, "That is the property of Yunling Palace. The Yunlan courtyard must be guarded by a large number of experts. I didn't expect that kid to be related to the Yun family and hide in the misty cloud courtyard. Qin Zheng's expression was somewhat gloomy as he ordered in a deep voice, keep an eye on the misty cloud courtyard day and night. You must keep a close eye on that brat. I don't believe that he'll continue to hide in the misty cloud courtyard. As long as he dares to leave that courtyard, I'll turn him into ashes. The black armored guard immediately cupped his fists and bowed. Then, he turned around to leave. But at this moment, another black armored guard strode into the study and quickly walked in front of Qin Zheng. He respectfully reporting to the city lord, that kid just left the misty cloud courtyard. Suddenly hearing this news, Qin Zheng was startled and a cold smile appeared on his face. Humph. This damned bastard, how could he be so arrogant and confident? Since he has personally delivered such an excellent opportunity to me, how can I let him go? After sneering, Qin Zheng immediately notify the few revered elders of the revered hall and have them begin to act immediately. Tonight, I want to see Ji Tianqing's head. The two black armored guards cupped their fists and accepted the order. They immediately left the study to pass on the order. Qin Zheng stared at the dark night outside the window and sneered with resentment, even if that kid is a genius prince, he's definitely not a match for a few Sky Origin Realm revered elders. After tonight, I'll have a meteoric rise and become the third prince's trusted aide. As he spoke, his eyes revealed a strong sense of expectation. In Liantian City, under the dark night, the street lights were sparse. The bustling street during the day had now fallen into a cold and silent state. The entire Liantian city was in a deep sleep, quiet and serene. Ji Tianqing walked alone on the street. His pace was as fast as the wind, and his figure was faintly discernible in the night. At this moment, he was rushing to the Great Fortune Inn in the city, preparing to look for Ling Yixiong. Yun Luo was still secretly investigating Ling Yixiong's background, but there were no results yet. Ji Tianqing wanted to meet Ling Yixiong personally and test him again. In addition, he left Yunlan courtyard alone in the middle of the night with the intention of luring the snake out of its hole. On the surface, it looked like he was rushing through the city empty-handed and defenseless. However, in reality, Ji Tianqing secretly released his spiritual sense to cover an area of 300 meters around him, monitoring the movements in the dark at all times. After a quarter of an hour, he was passing by a dark bluestone road. On both sides of the road were lush forests, filled with towering trees. In the depths of the forest, a few simple and unadorned houses could be faintly seen. If it was during the day, the houses on both sides of the road could be called a quiet and secluded place. However, in this dark night, the surroundings of the road were dark and deathly silent, appearing somewhat eerie and terrifying. Ji Tianqing was shuttling through the dark night when he suddenly stopped and stood in the middle of the bluestone road. He looked at the dark night in front of him and shouted with an expressionless face, "Since you followed me here, why don't you show yourself?" His cold voice echoed in the night, containing a hint of contempt and mockery. However, the surroundings were quiet, and not a single figure appeared within 1,000 meters. Ji Tianqing frowned, the corners of his mouth curling into a sneer as he said, "Cowardly scoundrel, don't you find it suffocating to hide underground?" As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly raised his right foot, channeled all of his power, and fiercely stomped on the ground. Bang! In the midst of a dull and loud noise, a majestic and mighty force fiercely blasted into the ground. The flat ground within 100 meters suddenly swelled like a wave, emitting a dull rumbling sound. The flat and sturdy bluestone road was also shaken to the point that it twisted and folded, splitting into a dozen or so wide gullies. In the next moment, several figures dressed in black flew out from the cracks in the ground and landed around Ji Tianqing with a swish. Ji Tianqing scanned the area with his spiritual sense and saw that there were 5 assassins in black. They were scattered in all directions and had surrounded him. The 5 assassins in black were all different in body shape and temperament. There were old and young, male and female. However, they all had one thing in common, which was that they were all at the first level of Sky Origin stage. Two of the stronger ones were a tall and sturdy man and a skinny woman. They were both at the second level of Sky Origin stage. Ji Tianqing was surrounded by the 5 Sky Origin stage cultivators, but he didn't change his expression at all. He was still calm and composed. He even looked around and glanced at the 5 Sky Origin stage cultivators, the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. Hee, your master is really looking down on me. How dare trash like you try to assassinate me? Chapter 560. Among the 5 Sky Origin stage cultivators, the leader of the group could not hold back his anger and spoke first. He stared at Ji Tianqing with his eyes wide open and shouted, "You little bastard! You are really arrogant. How dare you do whatever you want in Liantian City just because you are the crown prince? Tonight, I will kill you for the good of the people." Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered, "Heh, heh. Is this the reason why you want to assassinate me? How can you come up with such a lame excuse? I admire you." The burly man's face immediately turned red, and he was filled with embarrassment. Luckily, he was wearing a veil, so no one could see his expression in the dark night. The skinny woman beside him stared at him coldly and then shouted at Ji Tianqing, "You little bastard. Even if you have a sharp tongue, it is useless. You have offended someone you shouldn't have. Nobody can save you tonight. You are going to die." Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. He thought to himself doubtfully, the 2 assassins who tried to assassinate me and Ling Yichuan were both in the 3rd and 4th layer of Sky Origin stage. Tonight, the 5 assassins who came to kill me were much weaker than before. It seems that these 2 groups of assassins are not from the same force. Otherwise, they are too stupid. Thinking of this, he vaguely had an answer. He stared at the skinny woman and sneered, "If you can kill with your mouth, you are indeed powerful. However, if this is all the Liantian city governor's lackey can do, it is too disappointing." The assassins in black were all shocked. There was a subtle change in their eyes. Although they did not say anything, Ji Tianqing could feel that something was wrong with them. He knew that his test had worked. At this moment, the skinny woman frowned and shouted angrily, "What Liantian city governor? I don't know what you are talking about. Cut the crap and hand over your life." The skinny woman obviously did not want to talk to Ji Tianqing. She immediately took out a long and narrow black scimitar and rushed toward him. Swish swish. The emaciated woman brandished her long and narrow curved blade and slashed out 2 10-meter-long golden blade lights toward Ji Tianqing. The other 4 black-clothed assassins immediately attacked as well. They brandished their swords and sabers, unleashing their powerful killing moves and besieging him. Ji Tianqing was instantly surrounded by dozens of sword and saber lights. The dazzling quintessence light illuminated the night sky for several hundred meters. Sharp saber chi in sword intent burst forth, kicking up a strong wind. A golden light flashed behind Ji Tianqing, and a pair of golden wings appeared. The pitch-black black dragon sword also appeared in his left hand out of thin air. He condensed his majestic true essence into a celestial dipper shield to protect himself. 9 heavens dragon soars. With a light shout, he brazenly pulled out the black dragon sword and fiercely slashed at a black-clothed old man on the left. Among the 5 assassins, the big man and the skinny woman were the most powerful. They were both at the 2nd level of Sky Origin stage. The other 3 were all at the 1st level of Sky Origin stage, so they were his first targets. Roar! When the black dragon sword was unsheathed, a 30-meter-long frost divine dragon suddenly appeared in the night sky, letting out a deafening dragon roar. The frost divine dragon carried the power to destroy everything and emitted a bone-chilling coldness. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, tearing apart the night sky. It shattered several saber lights and sword lights, and then slashed at the black-clothed old man. Boom! With a muffled sound, blood spurted out and pieces of flesh flew everywhere. The black-clothed old man at the first level of Sky Origin stage was smashed into pieces by the Frost Divine Dragon. He hadn't said a word since he showed up. He didn't even have the time to scream before he was smashed into pieces of flesh and blood on the ground. He was probably the most tragic Sky Origin stage cultivator in history. After the Frost Divine Dragon killed the black-clothed old man, it created a 10-meter-wide crater on the ground. Dust flew up into the air, and then it slowly dissipated. The other 4 assassins saw how the black-clothed old man was killed within seconds. They were all shocked, and their eyes were wide open in horror. At the same time, over a dozen huge saber lights and sword shadows drowned Ji Tianqing's figure. Bang! 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 With a series of muffled noises, over a dozen violent saber lights and sword shadows were all blocked by Ji Tianqing's Big Dipper shield and golden wings. The violent energy mixed with the brilliance of true essence formed a colorful shockwave that spread out in all directions, sweeping across a radius of several hundred meters. The bluestone road was shattered by the blast wave. The ground was shaking violently, and dense cracks appeared on the ground. Even many of the towering trees in the surroundings were crushed into wood shavings and scattered among the ruins. What happened next made the 4 assassins even more terrified. Ji Tianqing was completely unscathed. He flew out of the chaotic multicolored light and into the night sky. He opened his golden wings, held the black dragon's sword in his hand, and stepped on the night sky 100 meters high, emitting a domineering aura. He looked down at the 4 black-clothed assassins and waved the black dragon's sword in his right hand. He slashed out an earth-shattering sword aura towards the burly man and the skinny woman. Water split. The 50-meter-long golden sword locked on the burly man and the skinny woman's aura and slashed down from the sky. The 2 assassins' faces changed drastically. They immediately waved their saber and sword to perform their unique skills to block the slash of the giant sword. Bang! 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 The saber lights and sword shadows collided with the giant golden sword, creating a series of loud noises, shaking the sky and the earth. The dazzling brilliance lit up the night sky as if it was daytime. In the loud noises, the burly man and the skinny woman were both blown away. Blood rained down from their bodies, and they fell into the ruins 100 meters away. At this time, Ji Tianqing extended his left hand again. Dazzling red fire gushed out, forming a 30-meter-long fiery sword light, and slashed at another assassin. Red Dragon Flash. The fire around the huge flaming sword condensed into a red flaming dragon. It burst out of violent power and hit the first-level Sky Origin stage assassin in black within a second. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the black-clothed assassin's true essence shield was shattered. His entire body was smashed into pieces under the attack of the red dragon. Even the pieces of his body had been burned into pitch-black charcoal by the crimson flames and scattered among the ruins. Another Sky Origin stage cultivator was killed by Ji Tianqing within seconds. In a blink of an eye, 2 of the 5 assassins were killed, and the other 2 were severely wounded. The last level 1 Sky Origin stage assassin was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly turned around and ran away. Ji Tianqing stepped on the night sky, coldly staring at the assassin's back. He sneered, "Since you are here, you have to stay." After that, he fully operated his martial arts and released 2 30-meter-long giant sword lights, slashing at the assassin from both sides. Wind Thunder Strike. The 2 giant sword lights cut through the night sky and arrived behind the assassin in a blink of an eye. They attacked from both sides, forming a shocking thunderbolt and slashing down. Boom! Chapter 561. Within a dozen breaths, 3 of the 5 Sky Origin stage cultivators were killed. Although the 3 of them were only at the first level of Sky Origin stage. However, they were all killed within seconds. They couldn't even fight back. The strong man and the skinny woman were both badly injured. Their black robes were soaked with blood. They struggled for a while and finally crawled out from the ruins. However, they didn't dare to attack Ji Tianqing anymore. The two of them had long been frightened by Ji Tianqing's terrifying divine might. Their eyes were filled with terror, and their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. How is this possible? This man is at least at the 4th or 5th level of Sky Origin stage. Didn't he just become a crown prince? How can he be so powerful? Damn it! Qin Jing messed me up. Damn it! They looked up at Ji Tianqing in the night sky. Their eyes were filled with fear. The last bit of fighting spirit in their hearts was gone. They wanted to run away. The two of them had the thought of running away almost at the same time. They looked at each other tacitly and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. They didn't hesitate at all. They ran to the east and the west. Whoosh! Whoosh! They both burst out powerful spiritual energy. Colorful flames were burning on their bodies. They turned into two streams of light and flew away in the night sky. It would be difficult for anyone to make a decision in such a situation. No matter which one he chased, the other one would definitely run away. The strong man and the skinny woman both thought that one of them would be able to escape. However, they had no idea how powerful Ji Tianqing's strength and methods were. He coldly stared at the skinny woman who was running to the west. He raised his left hand without hesitation and activated the horrifying red flame fire. The red flame fire poured out from his left hand, which looked like it was made of lava. It turned into a giant flaming hand and slapped on the skinny woman. Sky-burning palm. The giant flaming hand covered the sky. It flashed across the night sky like lightning and caught up with the skinny woman within seconds. Boom! Amidst a deafening boom, the giant flaming palm blasted the frail woman into smithereens on the spot and blasted a huge crater with a radius of 100 meters in the ground. The raging scarlet flame true fire surged and flooded the area within a radius of several hundred meters, turning the area into a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, the lush forest disappeared, and the towering trees turned into ashes. As for the fragments of the emaciated woman's corpse, they were naturally burned to ashes by the scarlet flame true fire. The dark night sky was illuminated, and the flames could be seen within a radius of 100 miles. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already chased towards the east and began to hunt down the burly man. After he used the burning sky palm, he didn't even need to look at the result to know that the thin and weak woman's fate was certain death. Shwa! Ji Tianqing cut through the night sky as fast as lightning, and caught up with the burly man in just a few breaths. Scarlet Dragon Flash! He shouted in a cold tone and waved his hand to release a 10-meter-long flaming sword light toward the burly man. The scarlet flame lingering on the sword light turned into a flame divine dragon. It instantly crossed the night sky 100 meters away and fiercely blasted the burly man. Bang! With a dull loud sound, the burly man's true essence shield was smashed into pieces. His whole body was also thrown out and fell forward powerlessly. One of his arms was cut off by the sword light, and a bull-sized hole was pierced through his chest and abdomen. Blood kept coming out of the wound, turning him into a bloody man. He was still falling in midair, but his consciousness was already blurred and he fell into a coma. With a dull thud, the burly man fell to the ground and smashed into a bush. Immediately afterward, Ji Tianqing flew over like a stream of light and landed in front of him. Ji Tianqing used his spiritual sense to check his injuries. He was relieved to see that he was only seriously injured and unconscious and didn't die on the spot. It's good that you're not dead. Indeed, if he wanted to kill the burly man, he could directly use the sword of judgment to kill him. But he wanted to keep him alive for interrogation, so he held back just now. Ji Tianqing stretched out his hand to pick up the seriously injured and unconscious burly man. Like picking up a chicken, he flew out of the jungle in a flash and quickly left. The earth-shattering battle just now had already alarmed the people and martial artists in the surroundings. Lights were lit up in all directions. Some martial artists were shouting, and some of the bolder experts quickly rushed over to see what was going on. However, when those martial artists arrived, they only saw the devastated ruins, and the ground was full of gullies and deep pits. After a quarter of an hour, Ji Tianqing carried the unconscious burly man and entered a deserted house. Under the dark night, the house was dead silent and exuded a terrifying chill. The house was old and dilapidated, and the yard was full of weeds that were half a man's height. There were dilapidated walls and broken door frames covered with spider webs. Ji Tianqing threw the burly man on the grass, waved his hand, and injected a stream of true essence into the burly man's body. The burly man's injuries were suppressed and he immediately woke up. However, his injuries were too serious. Even if his consciousness was awake, his body was lying on the ground and he couldn't move, let alone escape. He opened his eyes and saw Ji Tianqing looking down at him from above. His expression was cold and his eyes were indifferent. The burly man was shocked and showed a frightened look. He subconsciously wanted to struggle. Ji Tianqing stepped on his chest and pressed him to the ground, unable to move. He asked in a cold voice, "Tell me your identity. Who ordered you to assassinate me?" The burly man clenched his teeth tightly. He had a rather unyielding attitude and was unwilling to let go of the matter. Ji Tianqing wasn't angry, nor was he in a hurry. With an expressionless face, he said, "You must think that regardless of whether you speak or not, you'll definitely die. That's why you'd rather die than speak." The burly man glared at him and roared in a hoarse voice, "Isn't that the case? I admit that I've lost to you. But even if I die, I will never tell you. Give me a quick death." Ji Tianqing's mouth hooked up, revealing a cold smile. His tone was full of pity as he said, "Falling into my hands, do you think your life and death is still in your hands? You can choose to keep your mouth shut, but I will use you to practice a new sword art. I will stab you 990 times, piercing you into a sieve, but every sword will avoid the vital points. I will never let you die." As he spoke, he stretched out his right palm and more than 10 finger-long golden swords appeared in his palm, quickly dancing and spinning. When the burly man heard his cold words and saw his indifferent eyes, he was so scared that his whole body trembled, and a chill ran down his spine. "Ji Tianqing! You bastard! Bastard!" Ji Tianqing didn't talk nonsense. He waved his right hand and shot out more than 10 golden swords. Swish! 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 As the sword light flashed, more than 10 bloody holes immediately appeared on the burly man's right leg, and a large amount of blood spurted out. Under the intense pain, he immediately let out a miserable howl and his whole body twitched. He clenched his teeth and remained silent, breathing heavily for a while. After struggling and hesitating for a while, he opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianqing, you win. I will speak, I will confess everything. My name is Yu Biao, and I joined the Liantian city lord Qin Jing 8 years ago. Now I am a consecrator of the city lord mansion. The other 4 are consecrators of the city lord mansion like me. Tonight, they received Qin Zheng's order to join forces to kill you and avenge Qin Zheng's 4th son, Qin Feng." Yu Biao couldn't bear the pressure and finally confessed the truth. Chapter 562. After Yu Biao confessed the truth, he closed his eyes and panted heavily. His injuries were too severe and his strength was extremely weak. He could feel his life force draining away quickly. His heart was filled with anxiety and worry. He could not help but raise his head to look at Ji Tianqing. He saw that Ji Tianqing was playing with a piece of dark silver crystal in his left hand. He seemed to be deep in thought. Yu Biao could not help but urge, "Ji Tianqing, I have confessed. Are you still not going to let me go?" Ji Tianqing kept the piece of dark silver crystal and glanced at him indifferently. He sneered, "Let you go? How naive." Yu Biao's expression changed drastically. He shouted furiously, you bastard. You don't keep your word. Keep my word. Ji Tianqing looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He asked, did I say that I would let you go? You. Yu Biao was speechless and his heart was dead. Ji Tianqing did not want to waste any more time with him. He waved his hand and a sword light was shot out, cutting off his throat. After a spurt of blood, Yu Biao lost his life force and died on the spot. The group of people who wanted to deal with me hid themselves deeper and were harder to deal with. In comparison, the Liantian city governor's power and methods are nothing to be afraid of. Since that is the case, I will cut the Gordian knot and get rid of the Liantian city governor first. Then, I will focus on dealing with the other group of people. Ji Tianqing thought to himself. He turned around and left the abandoned house, disappearing into the night. After he had crippled Qin Feng, he had expected that the Liantian city governor would take revenge. Therefore, he had asked Yun Yao about the Liantian city governor's situation. According to what Yun Yao knew, the Liantian city governor, Qin Zheng, was mediocre. He was only at the 4th level of Sky Origin stage among all the Castellans in the Central Plains. However, he was loyal to the imperial court. He was good at flattering people. He was only able to secure his position as the Liantian city governor because he had the support of one of the princes. The mayor's mansion was heavily guarded. Not only were there many Sky Origin Great Formations, there were also nearly 10 Sky Origin stage cultivators guarding the mansion. In addition, there were over 1,000 guards in the city lord's mansion. Among them, there were dozens of Yuan Dan experts. It was precisely because Ji Tianqing understood the situation that he wanted to kill his way into the city lord's mansion alone and settle this matter once and for all. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing arrived outside the city lord's mansion. He did not approach the main gate of the city lord's mansion. Instead, he appeared in the dark forest beside the city lord's mansion. He stood in the dark forest. His figure blended into the night, and his aura became hidden and obscure. 10 meters in front of him was the wall of the city lord's mansion. The wall made of pitch-black boulders was over 6 meters tall and extremely sturdy. An invisible defensive array enveloped the tall walls of the courtyard. If Ji Tianqing wanted to sneak into the Castellan mansion, he would have to break the invisible Tianyuan Grand Array. He stood quietly in the woods, using his spiritual sense to secretly probe the formation, looking for flaws and ways to break it. Time passed by quietly. 2 hours quickly passed. Finally, Ji Tianqing found a flaw in the formation. He waved his hand and shot out rays of true essence brilliance, beginning to crack the defensive array. His movements were neither fast nor slow, and he was very careful. He did not make any noise, nor did he agitate any intense true essence fluctuations. He spent another 2 hours before he managed to crack a crack in the formation. Swoosh! With a flash of light, Ji Tianqing passed through the crack in the formation and quietly entered the city lord's mansion. It was the middle of the night. The city lord's mansion was dimly lit. Most people were either sleeping or cultivating. Team after team of black-armored guards patrolled the mansion according to a fixed schedule and route. Ji Tianqing released his spiritual sense, quietly covering a range of 200 to 300 meters to investigate the situation. Spiritual sense was like an invisible eye. Not only could it see the surrounding situation clearly, but it could also investigate the movements underground. In the night, spiritual sense was far more useful than the eyes. Ji Tianqing used his spiritual sense to investigate the situation in the surroundings, and avoided all the overt and covert sentries and patrolling guards in advance. Not long after, he entered the depths of the city lord's mansion and walked into the palace that the city lord, Qin Zheng, lived in. When he found Qin Zheng was pacing back and forth in the study. Qin Zheng had a serious expression and worry hung between his brows. 2 black-armored guards guarded the door to the study, and their auras were icy cold and murderous. Ji Tianqing silently arrived outside the study and attacked without the slightest hesitation, executing a lightning-like attack to brazenly attack the two guards. Whoosh whoosh. He waved his hand and struck out two golden sword lights that were swift like lightning, shooting towards the throats of the two guards. The two guards were utterly unprepared. Someone had actually sneaked into the city lord's mansion and even dared attack them. Swoosh! Swoosh! Golden lights appeared abruptly, and the two 8th level Origin Core stage guards were instantly pierced through by the sword lights while being caught off guard. The two of them stared, their eyes wide open as they stared fixedly at Ji Tianqing, and their eyes revealed terror and astonishment. Their vitality swiftly severed, and they didn't even let out a shrill cry before collapsing onto the ground and becoming two corpses. Qin Zheng, who was in the study, was instantly jolted awake by the noise outside the door. His footsteps stopped abruptly, and he immediately turned around to look towards the door. At the same time that he released his spiritual sense to investigate the situation, he shouted out with a low voice. "Who's outside?" What answered him was a muffled bang. Subsequently, the door was kicked open. Ji Tianqing walked with steady footsteps and carried along a murderous aura as he stepped into the study. Qin Zheng's face instantly went grim, and his eyes glared angrily at Ji Tianqing as the aura on his entire body became icy cold. "Who are you?" Ji Tianqing walked into the study and stood still, then he looked at Qin Zheng with a sneer on his face and said with a ridiculing tone. "Didn't you want to kill me to take revenge for Qin Feng? How could you not recognize me?" Suddenly hearing this sentence, Qin Zheng's eyebrows furrowed together, and two cold lights flashed in his eyes. "You are Ji Tianqing?" Qin Zheng's tone was filled with disbelief, and a trace of murderous intent surged out from his eyes. "Are you surprised?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and the true essence in his body invisibly converged, brewing a violent and terrifying power. Qin Zheng quickly suppressed the shock in his heart, and his eyes stared fixedly at Chu Li as he asked in a low voice, "So, the plan of the 5 consecrators under my command, failed?" Ji Tianqing said indifferently, "That's right, they were all killed by me." "That's impossible." Qin Zheng's eyes suddenly widened in anger, revealing a look of deep shock. "Even if you're stronger than them, it's impossible for you to block the joint assassination of 5 people. He, whether I can or not, you'll know soon enough." After saying this, Ji Tianqing didn't waste any more words with him, and used all of his power to activate a flaming sword light, and fiercely attacked him. Red Dragon Flash. The flaming sword light that was 10 meters long appeared out of nowhere, almost filling up the study, and instantly drowning Qin Zheng's figure. Boom! In the deafening loud noise, monstrous flames burst out, and the whole study was smashed into pieces. Endless flames and debris mixed together, bursting out in all directions. Chapter 563. Bang! With a muffled sound, Qin Zheng flew over 100 meters away and smashed into the wall of a palace. He smashed a human-shaped dent in the thick and solid palace wall on the spot, and dense cracks appeared all around. The shocking commotion immediately spread throughout the entire city lord's mansion, waking up countless guards and servants. Immediately, shouts could be heard everywhere in the city lord's mansion. Many guards quickly rushed over. Ji Tianqing didn't care. From the moment he stepped into the mansion, he had decided to end this as soon as possible. As the saying goes, to catch bandits, catch the ringleader first. No matter how many powerful cultivators there were in the mansion, as long as he killed Qin Zheng, it would be much easier. However, Qin Zheng was a powerful cultivator of Sky Origin stage after all. He had been prepared for this. When Ji Tianqing used the Red Dragon Flash, he had used all his power to form the Big Dipper shield. Although he was blown away and looked miserable, the Big Dipper shield had blocked most of his power. However, his Celestial Dipper shield blocked most of the power, and he only suffered minor injuries. Swoosh! Qin Zheng's body was glowing with colorful lights. He rushed out from the ruins in a flash. Ji Tianqing. You damned little bastard. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, I'll definitely kill you tonight. Prepare to die. Qin Zheng was furious. He roared with a ferocious face. His body turned into a stream of light and flew up to the sky. He looked down at Ji Tianqing from above. He was so angry that his hair and beard were all standing up. His body was emitting a violent aura that made his robe flutter. Ji Tianqing stood above the ruins and looked at Qin Zheng coldly. You are at Sky Origin stage after all. You do have some skills. However, I wonder how many attacks you can take from me. As he spoke, he unleashed his powerful qi. His body was glowing with golden flames. White Tiger Divine Sword. Ji Tianqing let out a low growl. His body merged with the golden flames and turned into a giant golden sword that was more than 100 feet long. Swoosh! The huge golden sword cut through the night sky, carrying with it an extremely violent killing intent as it ruthlessly slammed towards Qin Zheng in the night sky. The golden flames around the giant sword condensed into the shadow of a white tiger that was as huge as a mountain. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, revealing a murderous intent that could shake the heavens and the earth. In the blink of an eye, the white tiger sacred sword arrived in front of Qin Zheng. Overflowing golden flames engulfed his figure. Qin Zheng's expression immediately changed, and his eyes became extremely solemn. At the critical moment, he knew that his celestial dipper shield would not be able to block the white tiger sacred sword, so he took out a pearl that was as black as ink without hesitation. Night release of flowing light, black water wall. Qin Zheng shouted in a low voice as he used some kind of secret technique to inject his majestic true essence into the black pearl. Suddenly, the egg-sized black ball released a black water curtain, which condensed into a black water barrier, blocking in front of him. Almost at the same time the black water barrier was formed, the white tiger sacred sword had already arrived and ruthlessly smashed into the black water barrier. Boom! The white tiger sacred sword and the black water barrier collided and exploded with a dull sound. In the blink of an eye, the black water barrier collapsed and shattered, turning into a boundless black rain that poured down in torrents on the city lord's mansion. The flames around the white tiger sacred sword were also completely extinguished, and its radiance dimmed by a lot. Although the black water barrier was shattered, the power of the white tiger sacred sword was reduced by 60%. When the white tiger sacred sword pierced Qin Zheng and sent him flying, his internal organs were only injured, and he was not seriously injured. Qin Zheng's figure cut through the night and crashed into a house with a plop, smashing 2 houses on the spot and turning them into ruins. After the white tiger sacred sword dissipated, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. Just as he was about to chase after Qin Zheng, more than 30 black armored guards rushed out from all directions. Many of the guards held swords and sabers, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. In the blink of an eye, they surrounded him. Kill! There's an assassin. Protect the city lord. We can't let this person escape, kill him. The 30-plus guards let out furious roars as they desperately launched a besiegement. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing frowned, and a cold light flashed within his eyes. Qin Zheng, this bastard, actually has a treasure to protect him. I must deal with him as soon as possible. If I alarm the various forces in the city, I'm afraid it won't end well. He wasn't worried about the forces of the city lord's estate, but there were many emperors, members of various large forces, and aristocratic families living in Sky City, and the situation was extremely complicated. Only by ending the battle as soon as possible could he smoothly resolve the grudges. Thus, Ji Tianqing executed the 5th form of the Flying Star Sword technique without the slightest hesitation. Shatter the mountain and river. He waved his hands and made profound and unfathomable gestures, and his figure teleported and flashed in the night sky as he ceaselessly released numerous dazzling sword lights that shot towards the surroundings. Swoosh! 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 The area within a 100-meter radius was enveloped by the dense sword lights, and it became dazzling and extremely chaotic. The 30-plus guards were immediately enveloped by the boundless sword lights, and their figures were drowned. These people were all Origin Core experts, and there were more than 20 of them whose strength was below the 6th level of the Origin Core stage. Only 10 of them had reached the 6th level of the Origin Core stage. When the might of the Shatter the Mountain and River exploded, thousands upon thousands of sword lights exploded at the same time, and a loud explosion that shook the heavens exploded. The area within a 100-meter radius immediately turned into chaos, and it was turbid and chaotic to the extreme. 2 residences and a palace were blasted to the point of collapse, and they became ruins that covered the ground. The 30-plus guards were unable to resist at all, and they were instantly minced into pieces by the sword lights that filled the sky, and they turned into minced meat. Qin Zheng had just crawled out from the ruins and was about to seize the opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Ji Tianqing, but he witnessed this scene with his own eyes. The 2 Heavenly Origin Stage revered elders who had just arrived also saw the scene of the 30-plus guards being killed in an instant. Instantly, the 3 of them were filled with shock, and they revealed an extremely shocked expression. Qin Zheng temporarily forgot to attack, and he looked at Ji Tianqing with a face full of shock, and he roared involuntarily, although he's only at the 2nd level of the Heavenly Origin Stage, his combat strength is comparable to the 5th level of the Heavenly Origin Stage. Is this the strength of an emperor's son? After Ji Tianqing killed the 30-plus guards in an instant, he turned around to look at Qin Zheng in the night sky and glanced at the 2 purple-robed revered elders. He could guess that the 2 purple-robed middle-aged men should be the remaining 2 revered elders in the city governor's estate. Of course, the strength of the 2 revered elders surpassed the 5 revered elders he killed earlier, and they were at the 3rd level of the Heavenly Origin Stage. Before Ji Tianqing could attack again, Qin Zheng and the 2 purple-robed revered elders recovered from their shock and joined forces to launch a joint attack on him. Bastard! Tonight, I'll tear you into pieces. How dare you commit a massacre in the city governor's estate? You've committed a heinous crime. No matter who you are, you'll definitely die tonight. I'll definitely take your head to pay for the innocent souls who died in vain. Qin Zheng and the 2 revered elders roared furiously, and they slashed out sword lights that covered the sky, and they blasted towards Ji Tianqing. Chapter 564. Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to open his golden wings, and dozens of powerful sword shadows slashed at him. Golden rock wings unite. The wide golden wings instantly closed and protected his body. In the next moment, the overwhelming sword shadows poured down like a torrential flood and drowned Ji Tianqing's figure. The huge sword aura and the violent saber shadow slashed at the golden wings one after another, producing muffled sounds of ping ping ping. Ji Tianqing's body trembled and fell from the sky to the ground, smashing into the ruins and splashing dust and stone debris. Qin Zheng and the 2 purple-robed reverends immediately revealed excited expressions. The 3 of them swooped down from the sky and wanted to take the opportunity to attack Ji Tianqing and kill him. They all thought that Ji Tianqing was injured and relaxed their vigilance. They only thought about how to kill Ji Tianqing. However, when they rushed to the top of the ruins, they did not find Ji Tianqing's figure. In the midst of the ruins, a dazzling crimson flame suddenly lit up, and a giant flaming palm that blotted out the sky appeared. Burning Sky Palm. Ji Tianqing raised his power to the limit and urged the endless red flame true fire to explode with the most powerful power. He fiercely blasted at Qin Zheng and the 2 purple-robed masters. The expressions of Qin Zheng and the 2 consecrators immediately changed wildly, revealing deep horror in their eyes. Perceiving the terrifying power contained in the flaming palm, the 3 of them felt deep fear and despair. However, they were too close to Ji Tianqing and the speed of the flaming palm was too fast. Even if they sensed that something was wrong and wanted to dodge, it was too late. Boom! In the earth-shattering noise, the flaming palm slapped Qin Zheng and the 2 masters and wrapped the 3 of them up in the night sky. At that moment, the dazzling red flame lit up the night sky within a kilometer, making the entire city lord's mansion as bright as day. The violent and hot flame waves spread out in all directions. The houses and buildings around the ruins were all smashed into pieces, collapsing and collapsing. The two masters were weaker and naturally could not withstand the power of the burning sky palm. Their bodies crumbled like broken porcelain bowls, shattering into pieces. Even the purple robes and soft armor they wore were burned to black ashes by the red flame true fire. In the blink of an eye, the two were killed on the spot by the burning sky palm and turned into ashes and dust, scattering in the night sky. Qin Zheng's strength was slightly stronger and he had the black water pearl to protect him, so he was lucky to survive. He was seriously injured by the flaming palm. His body was burned black like charcoal and covered with hideous and twisted wounds, with blood constantly gushing out. The flaming palm wrapped him up and flew thousands of meters into the night sky before the flames gradually dissipated. Qin Zheng fell from a height of 1,000 meters. His body was still emitting black smoke, like a piece of charcoal. His terrible injuries caused his consciousness to become blurry. He was unable to control his falling momentum and was about to lose consciousness. Bang! With a muffled sound, Qin Zheng fell into the ruins and smashed a big pit on the ground, splashing countless dust and gravel. He lay in the big pit in a sorry state. His body was covered with dirt and gravel, and his original appearance was almost unrecognizable. He struggled to fly out of the deep pit and escape as soon as possible. Swish! At this moment, a light flashed in front of him and a figure appeared out of thin air. Qin Zheng looked up and saw that the person was Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing looked at him indifferently and said in a cold tone, "Qin Zheng, everything is over. Give up resisting." Qin Zheng's face twisted in anger and he shouted unwillingly, "Ji Tianqing. You damn bastard. Do you want to kill all of us? I'm telling you, I'm the city lord appointed by the imperial court. You can't kill me." Ji Tianqing looked down at him condescendingly and sneered in disdain, "So what if you're the city lord appointed by the imperial court? You dared to send someone to assassinate the imperial prince. That's a capital offense. Even if I kill you now, do you think the imperial court will avenge you and seek justice from the imperial king residence?" Qin Zheng's body stiffened and his expression became extremely ugly. He knew very well that the imperial court would never fall out with the imperial king residence for a mere city lord. The status of a city lord was far inferior to the noble imperial prince. Thinking of this, an idea flashed through Qin Zheng's mind. He immediately shouted, "Ji Tianqing, don't you dare slander me. When did I send someone to assassinate you? What evidence do you have? You're the one who's arrogant and despotic. First, you severely injured my son, Qin Feng. Then, you broke into the city lord's residence in the middle of the night and started a massacre for no reason. Your methods are so cruel that it makes one's hair stand on end. Even if you're the imperial prince, you shouldn't be so cruel." Hearing what he said, Ji Tianqing sneered in disdain. "Humph, I've already guessed that you'll deny it. But it doesn't matter. I've already prepared the evidence. Let's see how you're going to quibble." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing took out a piece of dark silver crystal from his interspatial ring and injected his true core force into it. Suddenly, the dark silver crystal lit up with silver light and condensed into a ball of silver light. Then, an image appeared. In the image, it was a deserted and abandoned house. Under the gloomy night sky, Ji Tianqing was interrogating a burly man in black. The burly man was filled with fear. After hesitating for a long time, he said in a deep voice, "Ji Tianqing, you win. I'll tell you, I'll confess. My name is Yu Biao. I joined the Liantian city lord Qin Zheng 8 years ago." Obviously, the image in the silver ball of light was the scene of Yu Biao confessing. When Qin Zheng saw the image in the ball of light and heard Yu Biao's voice, his body stiffened and his heart was filled with fear and despair. Image recording crystal. Ji Tianqing, you bastard. You've already prepared the image recording crystal. You bastard. You're so cunning. The so-called image recording crystal was a very rare and precious treasure that could record images and sounds. Only some wealthy families and first-rate forces would have such a magical treasure to record important events or information. The image recording crystal in Ji Tianqing's hand was given to him by Yunyao. He had always kept it in his interspatial ring and never had the chance to use it. Now, it finally came in handy. A moment later, he put away the image recording crystal and sneered at Qin Zheng. Of course, I have to hold back when dealing with a despicable person like you. Even if I kill you now, as long as I take out the image recording crystal and present the evidence to the imperial court, they won't do anything to me. After all, you deserve to die. Qin Zheng was in complete despair. He only felt deep fear and regret in his heart. However, he still refused to give up hope and shouted angrily, Ji Tianqing. I admit defeat this time. I've underestimated you. But if you kill me, it won't do you any good. Instead, it will cause more trouble for you. Why don't you spare my life and we can reconcile? I won't take revenge in the future. Chapter 565. As soon as Qin Zheng heard Ji Tianqing's words, he heaved a sigh of relief. Naturally, he could tell that Ji Tianqing might not kill him. There was still a chance. Even as he rejoiced inwardly, he didn't show it on his face and began to bargain with Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, you are indeed a smart person. My son, Qin Feng, offended you and you severely injured him. You even crippled him. We will write off this debt and I will never seek revenge from you again. Our grudge is over. This is my attitude. As for my sincerity, we can discuss it later. Even though he was defeated and begging for mercy, Qin Zheng did not cry. He still maintained the dignity and strength of a city lord. Moreover, he knew that the various factions and experts in the city had been alerted. As long as he could stall for time, he could escape when the experts from various factions arrived. He even had a chance to fight back and capture or kill Ji Tianqing. Unfortunately, Ji Tianqing had seen through his thoughts and did not give him any chance. Bang! 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 Ji Tianqing reached out his hands and slapped Qin Zheng's body dozens of times, sealing his meridians and acupoints. In the blink of an eye, Qin Zheng's power was sealed, and he became a weakling that could not even truss up a chicken, waiting to be slaughtered. Ji Tianqing carried him in his hand as if he was carrying a chick. His figure flashed as he left the city lord's mansion. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing's figure flew across the sky and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. No one knew where he went. After dozens of breaths, streams of light flew in from all directions of the city lord's mansion. Dozens of divine prime experts appeared. These divine prime experts came from various factions. There were disciples of aristocratic families, leaders of various factions, and a few princes from the imperial residence. Everyone was alerted by the fight in the city lord's mansion and came to check the situation. However, when they arrived near the city lord's mansion, they hid in the dark and observed the situation quietly. More than half of the city lord's mansion had been turned into ruins, but the defensive array was still intact. The various experts could only observe in secret, analyze the situation in front of them, and wait for an opportunity to act. Half an hour later, the news of the attack on the city lord's mansion had spread. Undercurrents were surging in Niantian city. The powerhouses from various forces were all paying attention to the city lord's mansion, waiting for the results. At this moment, Ji Tianqing had already left Liantian city with Qin Zheng. Dozens of miles south of the city, in a dark cave on a steep mountain peak. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and threw Qin Zheng to the ground. Qin Zheng fell onto the ground that was filled with gravel. His entire body was covered with dust and stone fragments. He looked extremely miserable. He had a bad premonition in his heart as he glared at Ji Tianqing and growled, "Ji Tianqing, what are you trying to do?" Ji Tianqing sat down on a big rock in front of him and looked at him calmly. He smiled and said, "What else can I do? Of course, we're talking about the money you paid for your life. Didn't you want to stall for time and discuss with me slowly? Now, no one can disturb us. I have all the time in the world to talk with you slowly." Qin Zheng's face turned extremely ugly. His heart was filled with fear and hatred. It was only now that he realized that this 18-year-old young man in front of him was not only powerful, but also terrifyingly scheming. No matter what thoughts and plans he had in mind, they couldn't escape from Ji Tianqing's eyes. He was completely under Ji Tianqing's control. There was no room for him to escape or fight back. After a moment of silence, Qin Zheng had no choice but to calm down. He said in a low voice, "Ji Tianqing, as long as you let me go, I'm willing to give you half of the city lord's mansion's wealth." Lian Tian City ruled over a main city. There were dozens of villages and towns around it. There were at least a few million people in total. Within the borders of Lian Tian City, there were many precious resources and mineral veins that could produce a huge amount of wealth and resources every year. Half of Lian Tian City's wealth was definitely a shocking amount of wealth. However, Ji Tianqing wasn't excited at all. Instead, the sneer on his face deepened. Swoosh! He suddenly took out the black dragon sword and pressed it against Qin Zheng's neck. He shouted contemptuously, "Qin Zheng, you're about to die, and you still dare to play tricks with me. You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin." Ji Tianqing knew clearly that half of Lian Tian City's wealth might sound exciting, but it was just an empty promise from Qin Zheng. It was impossible for him to fulfill it. As long as Qin Zheng could survive tonight, Qin Zheng would definitely seek revenge on him in the future. Therefore, he had to use another method to put Qin Zheng to death. "Qin Zheng, hand over the space ring." Qin Zheng's expression changed immediately. He subconsciously clenched his left hand tightly and his eyes were filled with intense hatred. The space ring contained all his wealth and secrets. It was more important than his life. How could he hand it over so easily? When Ji Tianqing saw that Qin Zheng wasn't willing to give in, he didn't waste any time and stabbed his sword toward Qin Zheng's left leg. Swoosh! Blood splattered and a bloody hole appeared out of nowhere. However, it didn't hurt Qin Zheng's meridians and blood vessels. Qin Zheng gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. He still held the space ring tightly and stared at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing continued to brandish the black dragon sword and stabbed Qin Zheng more than 30 times, leaving a row of bloody holes on Qin Zheng's leg. However, all the wounds avoided his vital parts. "Qin Zheng, you can choose to fight to the death. However, I will stab you 990 times and let you have a taste of death by 1,000 cuts. Now that you're in my hands, your life and death are in my hands." Qin Zheng's face turned pale. His heart was filled with anger and fear. His body started to tremble. If a person was stabbed more than 1,000 times, he would have been pierced into a sieve and his blood would have been drained dry. To continue to live after enduring such pain was even more horrible than death. Qin Zheng hesitated and weighed the pros and cons. He was suffering and struggling in his heart. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything else. He held the black dragon sword expressionlessly and stabbed Qin Zheng again and again. After a while, Qin Zheng was stabbed more than 40 times. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He handed over the space ring in despair. He opened the seal on the ring and handed it to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing took the interspatial ring and probed it with his spiritual sense to check the things inside. He saw that there was a space with a radius of 10 meters in Qin Zheng's space ring. It was the size of a secret room. There were all kinds of resources and treasures piled up inside. They emitted extremely rich spirit qi and flashed with colorful brilliance. There were high-quality spirit stones, colorful gems, many elixirs, weapons, equipment, materials, and so on. Moreover, there were many strange treasures that even Ji Tianqing couldn't identify. Not only that, but there were also 2 big chests in the corner of the secret room. The chests were made of black meteoric iron. They were extremely sturdy and tough. They were comparable to Heaven Origin treasures. The meteoric iron chests were engraved with array patterns. They were sealed by a powerful Heaven Origin array and emitted a powerful and mysterious aura. Chapter 566. Ji Tianqing took out the 2 meteorite iron chests and placed them on the ground in front of Qin Zheng. When the 2 meteorite iron chests landed on the ground, they made a plop sound. Apparently, they were very heavy. Qin Zheng was lying on the ground covered in blood. His whole body was still trembling, and he kept groaning in pain. When he saw the 2 chests, his body suddenly shook. His pupils constricted, and a trace of panic and fear flashed across his eyes. Ji Tianqing stared at him sharply and asked, "What's in these 2 chests?" Qin Zheng's eyes were somewhat evasive. He stammered, "Nothing, just some ordinary treasures and gems." Ji Tianqing of course did not believe him. He sneered, "Is that so? Open it and let's see." Qin Zheng lay on the ground and refused to move. He also refused to tell the way to open the chests. Ji Tianqing frowned. He held the black dragon sword and stabbed a dozen bloody holes on Qin Zheng's body. Qin Zheng completely collapsed. He twitched in pain, and his breathing became erratic and rapid. His life force was also quickly fading away with the loss of blood. The pain and fear tortured him, and he could no longer hold on. He roared in a hoarse voice, "Ji Tianqing! Stop! I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." Then, his voice trembled, and he intermittently told the way to open the chests. Ji Tianqing successfully opened the first meteorite iron chest. He saw that there were more than 40 ancient books in the chest. Each book had a history of more than 100 years. They looked very old, and they emitted a condensed and heavy aura. Ji Tianqing picked up a dozen ancient books and glanced at them. He found that these ancient books were all martial arts manuals. Spirit Gathering Poison Scripture, 7 Kill Swordsmanship, Traceless Flying Rainbow Sword, Heartless Fantasy Feather Blade, 8 Directional Fantasy Sun Technique, they are all heaven-grade martial arts. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. His tone was full of surprise. In the Tianxian continent, Tianyuan realm martial artists were rare martial arts masters. In the 9 regions of the south, a Sky Origin stage expert could support a powerful martial arts sect. Even in the Central Plains, where martial arts flourished, Heaven Origin stage cultivators were respected figures. They could rule over a city or establish a wealthy family. For Sky Origin stage cultivators, Sky-level martial arts were much more valuable and important than Sky-level equipment and Dan beads. After all, Heaven-class weapons, equipment, and pills could not create a heavenly Yuan elite, but a Heaven-class martial art could. Heaven-grade cultivation techniques were divided into low-grade, high-grade, and top-grade. Even if it was an ordinary low-grade Heaven-level cultivation technique, it was still a priceless treasure. Even if one had the money, there was no market for it and it was very difficult to buy it. There were more than 40 secret books in this meteorite iron box. Their value was simply immeasurable. These cultivation methods and secret manuals were enough to support a wealthy family for 200 to 300 years. Ji Tianqing stared at Qin Zheng with sharp eyes, and said in a playful tone, "Qin Zheng, these cultivation technique manuals are what you've plundered after being the city lord for so many years, right? Humph, it seems like you're scheming something big." Ji Tianqing of course guessed that Qin Zheng had plundered these cultivation technique manuals because he wanted to establish a wealthy family and bring prosperity to the Qin family for hundreds of years. The facts proved that he had guessed correctly. Qin Zheng frowned and said in a hoarse voice, although I'm the city lord, I'm just a lackey for the imperial court. My identity and status are all given by the imperial court and can be taken away by the imperial court at any time. In the Central Plains, only when one's own forces are strong enough can he be considered a true expert. Just like the three ancient families, if they are strong enough, even the imperial court has to be wary of them. Although Ji Tianqing despised his character, he agreed with what he said. In the world of martial arts, the strong were respected. This was a truth that had never changed. He rummaged through the meteorite iron box and found a cultivation technique called Tianqing's 5 Extremes among the 40 secret manuals. Because the name of this cultivation technique was the same as his, he was interested and took a few more glances. At first glance, he realized that this Tianqing's 5 Extremes cultivation technique was a secret technique that focused on cultivating the power of the 5 elements. Moreover, this was a heaven-level upper-level cultivation technique. There was a saying in the book that everything in the world was derived from the 5 elements. No matter if it was flowers, trees, dust, stones, birds, beasts, wind, rain, thunder, or lightning, they were all derived from the power of the 5 elements. As long as the power of the 5 elements was cultivated to the extreme, one could control the power of all things and have the same power as heaven and earth. They would have unparalleled power that was close to that of a god. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes lit up and an idea popped up in his mind. Those saber techniques, sword techniques, and internal strength mental cultivation techniques are useless to me. They can't be compared with the Tao of Kenshin. But this Tianqing's 5 Extremes cultivation technique is the most suitable for me to cultivate at the moment. I haven't been able to cultivate the power of earth and wood, so the progress of my strength is slow. If I cultivate this cultivation technique, I will be able to make rapid progress and my power will improve rapidly. Thinking of this, he put the Tianqing's 5 Extremes cultivation technique into the space ring and kept it for future study and cultivation. Next, Ji Tianqing looked at other cultivation techniques and found that most of them were heaven-level lower-level cultivation techniques and were not very useful to him. So, he put more than 40 cultivation techniques back into the meteorite iron box and put them into the space ring. The cultivation techniques that Qin Zheng had spent decades to collect were all taken away by Ji Tianqing. His heart was almost bleeding, but there was nothing he could do. Now that he was about to lose his life, how could he be attached to those worldly things? At this time, Ji Tianqing held a fist-sized golden stone in his hand and looked at it. This oval-shaped golden stone was placed at the bottom of the meteorite iron box and was covered by more than 40 cultivation techniques, but he found it. He held the uneven surface of the golden stone in his hand and felt as if he was holding a 10,000-pound boulder. It was terrifyingly heavy. He could clearly feel that there was a mysterious and powerful force inside the golden stone. But it was not any of the 5 elements and seemed to be extremely mysterious. Ji Tianqing looked at it over and over again for a while, but still couldn't figure out what kind of treasure this golden stone was, so he asked, "This golden stone you collected should be a rare treasure, right?" Qin Zheng stared at the golden stone for a while and then said in a hoarse voice, "It was something I found in some ruins more than 20 years ago. It was a strange meteorite. I studied it for many years and could only be sure that it was a meteorite, but I didn't know what effect it had. Apart from being able to stimulate the mysterious gravity, this golden stone had no other use, so I put it in the box and kept it. I had almost forgotten about it." Stimulate the mysterious gravity. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and a touch of doubt flashed in his eyes. At this time, the voice of the burial of heaven suddenly sounded in his mind. "Tianqing, this is not an ordinary meteorite, but a piece of star divine gold. Such an extraordinary treasure can only be found by chance. In the eyes of these ordinary people, it is a useless stone. How ridiculous." Chapter 567. The burial of heaven, who had been in a deep sleep and recuperation, suddenly took the initiative to remind Ji Tianqing. This made Ji Tianqing realize that the stellar divine gold in his hand must be an extremely precious treasure. Otherwise, the burial of heaven would never have been alarmed, let alone say such words. He was secretly surprised and quickly asked the burial of heaven with his mind. Burial of heaven, what kind of treasure is the stellar divine gold? What are its effects? The burial of heaven said in a low and vigorous voice, the stellar divine gold usually only appears in the depths of the starry sky in the Milky Way. Only after a star of the heavenly cycle star falls and turns into a meteor, can it form the stellar divine gold. Its effects are marvelous and extraordinary. As long as you use it properly, it will have countless wonderful uses. Of course, with your current strength and means, you won't be able to exploit even 1% of its wonderful effects. You only need to know that this stellar divine gold is a material used to forge supreme divine weapons. Although the burial of heaven's explanation was not clear, Ji Tianqing was still shocked and incredulous after hearing it. A material used to forge supreme divine weapons? Burial of heaven, what was the quality of your weapon when you were at your peak? Was it also a supreme divine weapon? Of course. The burial of heaven answered in a solemn tone and said in a deep voice, take this stellar divine gold first. I'll teach you how to use it later. When you're strong enough, you may be able to find more stellar divine gold and help me reforge my divine sword body. Okay. Ji Tianqing agreed without hesitation. He quickly stored the star divine gold into his spatial ring and stored it away. Then, he opened the second meteorite iron box. He saw that it was filled with all kinds of letters, files, account books, and more than a dozen luxurious scrolls. He picked up the letters, files, and account books and glanced at them. The expression on his face became subtle and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. On the contrary, Qin Zheng's expression and eyes became extremely ugly, filled with despair and indignation. It was because these letters, files, and account books recorded the secret letters he had exchanged with various forces, transaction bills, plans, and so on. There was even a lot of confidential information that involved several big shots in the imperial court and his master, the third prince. During the 60 years that Qin Zheng had been the city lord of Liantian City, he had tried every means to find a backer, to curry favor with the various major forces, and to rope in many families and experts. Not only did he have to fulfill his duties as the city lord, but he also had to pay tribute and taxes to the imperial court. Whether it was to curry favor with those above or to win over those below, it would cost an endless amount of wealth and resources. Qin Zheng didn't have a strong family background, so he didn't have strength or wealth. If he wanted to get enough wealth and resources, he could only think of all kinds of ways to fight, rob, and harm others and the people. In the process of his looting, it was inevitable that he had to annihilate many small families and sects, as well as countless civilians and merchants. All in all, Qin Zheng's status and power today was built on the accumulation of countless wronged souls and skeletons. His hands were stained with blood, and no one knew how many people he had killed. He was really full of evil. However, Qin Zheng was a scheming person, and he kept all the evidence and records of his crimes. He also left a backup plan and made sufficient preparations, in case he was abandoned and sacrificed by his master and allies, and he was powerless to fight back. He had the weakness of those forces and experts in his hands, so he could sit on the city lord's seat with a clear conscience. But now, all the evidence had fallen into Ji Tianqing's hands. After Ji Tianqing flipped through a dozen letters, files, and account books, he put them back into the meteorite iron box and put them into his space ring. He slowly walked in front of Qin Zheng and said with a smile, "Qin Zheng, I'm really surprised by the gift you've given me. Fortunately, I raided the city lord's mansion tonight and caught you off guard, so I was able to capture you successfully. If you were prepared and informed all the forces and experts to come to my aid, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you." Qin Zheng's forces were certainly not weak. If he was well prepared, he could at least gather 20 to 30 heaven origin stage experts to help him. After all, he was the city lord of Liantian City, a tyrant. How could he be easily provoked? However, he had underestimated Ji Tianqing's strength. He thought that the few consecrators in the city lord's mansion could easily get rid of Ji Tianqing. Moreover, he had never dreamt that Ji Tianqing would be so daring to barge into the city lord's mansion alone. No matter how scheming he was, and how deep his network of forces was, it was useless when he met with someone as tyrannical as Ji Tianqing. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and allies were useless. Qin Zheng's body was trembling, like a wild beast that was about to go berserk. He stared at Ji Tianqing with bloodshot eyes. He roared with a hoarse voice, "Ji Tianqing. You'd better pretend that you didn't see anything. Those things are not something you can touch. If you dare to leak the news, you'll implicate many forces and experts. Those honorable big shots are not people you can afford to offend. When the time comes, you'll get into big trouble. Even if you kill me, you'll be crushed to death by those big shots and experts. Let me give you a piece of advice. Return the meteorite iron box to me. It'll be good for both of us." Qin Zheng wasn't trying to scare him. He knew very well that the letters, files and account books in the box were related to more than 10 city lords, dozens of wealthy families and sections. Even the 2 princes of the imperial court, as well as several commanders and generals, were implicated. However, he didn't know Ji Tianqing, nor did he know Ji Tianqing's nature. Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. He shook his head gently and said in a mocking tone, "Qin Zheng, now that things have come to this, how can I let the tiger return to the mountain and give you a chance to take revenge? You're dead meat. But it's not me who's going to kill you. The imperial court will execute you. As for those forces that are implicated, what does that have to do with me? Don't tell me those forces dare to kill their way into the imperial residence and take revenge on me." Hearing his last sentence, Qin Zheng completely collapsed. He was truly speechless. Those forces and big shots were incomparably honorable to him. He couldn't afford to offend them. But to Ji Tianqing, the crown prince, they were nothing. As the crown prince of the imperial residence, he was one of the most honorable people on the continent. Ji Tianqing, the more Qin Zheng thought about it, the more indignant he became. In despair, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Ji Tianqing carried him out of the cave, flew into the dark night sky, and flew south as fast as lightning. Next, he was going to the imperial court to hand over Qin Zheng and the meteorite iron box full of evidence to the imperial court. As the crown prince, why would he be afraid of schemes? Chapter 568. Ji Tianqing sped through the night sky as fast as a flash of light. About 2 hours later, he crossed countless mountain ranges and arrived at the foot of heaven-reaching peak. Arriving at the imperial court again, Ji Tianqing climbed up the bluestone staircase with ease and rushed to the imperial court at the peak of the mountain. It was the darkness before dawn. Heaven-reaching peak was shrouded in the dark night, looking quiet and serene. Other than the patrolling imperial court guards, there was basically no one moving around on heaven-reaching peak. Not long after, Ji Tianqing climbed up the bluestone staircase halfway up the mountain. There was a towering mountain gate halfway up the mountain, guarded by many imperial court guards. The imperial court guard captain in golden armor stopped Ji Tianqing and asked him about his identity and purpose. Ji Tianqing took out the imperial prince token and said in a dignified voice, "I have something to report to the imperial court." "Why are you still not moving?" The imperial court guard captain wanted to let him go, but when he saw Ji Tianqing carrying a bloody middle-aged man in his hand, he could not help but take a second look. With one look, the imperial court guard captain was stunned, and a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. He looked for a moment and recognized that the middle-aged man who was seriously injured and unconscious was actually the city lord of heaven-reaching city. The imperial court guard captain frowned and stared sharply at Ji Tianqing. He asked, "Prince Tianqing, may I ask what is going on?" How did the city Lord of Heaven reaching city get injured and captured by you? Ji Tianqing glanced at him coldly and scolded, what does it have to do with you? I want to see the imperial tutor. You just have to go and report this to him. He knew very well that although he was a noble imperial prince, he could not easily meet the imperial emperor. If he could meet the imperial tutor, he could solve this matter smoothly. After being scolded by him, the imperial guard captain did not dare to ask any more questions. He quickly cupped his hands and said, Prince Tianqing, His Majesty the imperial tutor has been in seclusion on the star-picking platform to comprehend the mysteries of heaven. His Highness the imperial tutor cannot be disturbed. I can only report the news to Commander Yan, who will pass it on to His Highness the Emperor. The Commander Yan he mentioned was one of the commanders of the imperial court's guards. He guarded the palace of heaven and earth and was in charge of reporting information. Ji Tianqing frowned. He had no choice but to nod and say, then go and report it quickly. Don't delay. The guard captain cupped his hands and bowed. He quickly turned around and left, running towards the palace of heaven and earth at the peak of the mountain. Ji Tianqing carried the unconscious Qin Zheng and stood at the square halfway up the mountain, patiently waiting. In order to prevent Qin Zheng's injuries from becoming too severe, causing him to bleed too much and die prematurely, he had no choice but to circulate his energy to suppress Qin Zheng's injuries, allowing him to live for a few more hours. On the peak of the mountain, in the imperial court. To the left of the palace of heaven and earth was a magnificent palace. It was the Eastern Palace, the sleeping quarters of the Son of Heaven, Long Yunshao. It was currently late at night, but he was not in the mood to sleep or cultivate. He was currently on the roof of the Eastern Palace, leaning on the cornice of the golden tiles. His face was as calm as water, faintly flushed. His eyes stared silently at the crescent moon and specks of stars in the night sky. He held a white jade wine jug in his hand. From time to time, he would raise his head and drink a few mouthfuls of strong wine. The wine in the jug was not a spirit fruit wine that could increase one's power. It was truly dry and strong wine that burned the throat and the heart. Long Yunshao rarely drank wine in the past. Even if he did, it would be spirit fruit wine that was like fine nectar. However, ever since the consort selection, he had been drinking more and more often, and he only drank strong wine. Now, he had been sitting on the roof for most of the night. The wine in the jug was almost finished. Long Yunshao raised his head again and drank the last mouthful of strong wine in the jug. His handsome face became redder and redder. On the roof not far behind him stood a beautiful woman dressed in green. She was none other than Insuwen. The moonlight spilled on her body, making her figure hazy and indistinct. Apart from being charming and beautiful, there was also a sense of desolation. She quietly looked at Long Yunshao who was leaning on the cornice. Her clear eyes contained a trace of worry and pity. However, she could only watch. She was powerless to say anything. At this moment, a golden figure appeared on the square in front of the palace. It was the captain of the imperial guards guarding the mountain gate. He rushed up the mountain peak as fast as the wind and was about to pass through the square and rush to the palace of heaven and earth. Long Yunshao caught a glimpse of the captain of the imperial guards from the corner of his eye. He immediately frowned. Whoosh! His figure flashed and streaked across the night sky like a stream of light. He flew several hundred meters away and stopped the captain of the imperial guards. It's the middle of the night. Why are you panicking? Long Yunshao looked at the captain of the imperial guards and asked in a dignified voice. The captain of the imperial guards quickly stopped and bowed. Greetings, Your Majesty. Reporting to Your Majesty, there's an imperial prince named Ji Tianqing waiting at the mountain gate. He said that he has something important to report to the imperial tutor. Ji Tianqing. Long Yunshao frowned again. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. What's he doing here? The captain of the imperial guards replied truthfully, I've asked him why he's here, but he refused to tell me. He's holding the Lientian city lord captive. The Lientian city lord is covered in injuries and is unconscious. It's a tragic sight. I saw that he didn't come with good intentions, so I temporarily left him at the mountain gate. I'm about to go to the palace of heaven and earth to report to Commander Yen. Upon hearing the captain of the Imperial Guards, Long Yunxiao's brows tightly knitted together. His eyes kept changing as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. The Lientian city lord, Qin Zheng, seems to be the third prince's lackey. How could Ji Tianqing capture Qin Zheng and even injure him? Could it be that he had a conflict with Qin Zheng? That's not right. Ji Tianqing brought Qin Zheng to the imperial tutor in the middle of the night. There must be something important. Commander Yen, who is guarding the palace of heaven and earth, is also the third prince's confidant. If Commander Yen knows about this, he'll most likely report it to the third prince first. If the third prince interferes in this matter, I'm afraid he'll have to protect the Lientian city lord. Ji Tianqing will definitely be in trouble. Long Yunxiao's drunkenness had completely disappeared. His mind was very clear. In the blink of an eye, he had analyzed and deduced a lot of information. His expression didn't change as he said in a dignified tone, "There's no need to report this matter to the palace of heaven and earth. Bring Ji Tianqing to the East Palace. I'll deal with it myself." The captain of the Imperial Guards had no doubts about Long Yunxiao's words. It was impossible for him to disobey. "Yes, Your Majesty." He bowed and immediately turned to go down the mountain. 15 minutes later, the captain of the Imperial Guards returned to the middle of the mountain. With a solemn expression, he said to Ji Tianqing, "Prince Tianqing, please follow me." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and followed him through the mountain gate. They walked up the bluestone stairs to the peak of the mountain. Not long after, the two of them reached the peak of the mountain. The captain of the Imperial Guards led Ji Tianqing through the square in front of the palace and into the East Palace. They arrived at the door of a study room. "Prince Tianqing, the person you want to meet is in the study room. I'll take my leave now." The captain of the Imperial Guards cupped his hands and left. Ji Tianqing was puzzled. He pushed open the door and entered the study room with vigilance and caution. In the exquisite and elegant study room, there were a few gemstone lamps lit up. A handsome young man in a golden robe sat there. Chapter 569. Ji Tianqing didn't expect that the person in the study room wasn't Commander Yen, nor was it the imperial tutor or the emperor. It was the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao sat in front of a large desk by the window. His face was calm and his eyes were clear and deep. Apparently, he had already used his martial art to get rid of the alcohol. He sized up Ji Tianqing and then looked at Qin Zheng. Seeing Qin Zheng's burnt body in bloody holes, he couldn't help but frown. He was a little shocked. Long Yunxiao raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, "Seems like Qin Zheng has offended you quite a lot. He was actually beaten up so badly by you. Even if he is not dead, I'm afraid he is half dead." Then, he stared at Ji Tianqing and observed Ji Tianqing's expression. He wasn't sure if Ji Tianqing could defeat Qin Zheng, who was in the 4th level of Sky Origin stage, so he asked to test him. Ji Tianqing didn't hold back. He threw the unconscious Qin Zheng on the ground and walked to the desk and sat down in front of Long Yunxiao. "Tonight, Qin Zheng sent 5 consecrators from the governor's mansion to assassinate me. He wanted to take my life. It's not too much for me to treat him like this, right?" Ji Tianqing stared at Long Yunxiao. His tone was also playful and probing. Long Yunxiao's eyes flashed with surprise. He nodded slightly and said, "If that's the case, then he deserves it. I just can't believe that you could survive the assassination of 5 consecrators and even severely injure Qin Zheng and bring him to the imperial court. If I'm not wrong, Lientian City must be very lively tonight, right?" Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing guessed that Qin Zheng had nothing to do with him. So, he nodded and said calmly, "That's right. I killed my way into the governor's mansion and captured Qinzheng. This will definitely shake Liantian City. But this is just the beginning. I brought Qinzheng to the imperial court to give the imperial court a surprise." Long Yunxiao was shocked again and asked in disbelief, You killed your way into the governor's mansion? You captured Qinzheng from the city lord's mansion?" He could see that Ji Tianqing had reached the second level of Sky Origin stage. When Ji Tianqing had just reached the Sky Origin stage, he had already defeated him on the Monarch stage. Now that Ji Tianqing had advanced another level, his battle prowess would definitely be even more terrifying. But even so, Ji Tianqing had openly killed his way into the city lord's mansion and captured Qinzheng under the protection of many experts. That was something inconceivable. Ji Tianqing smiled and said indifferently, "Don't be too surprised. I just caught him off guard. Even you didn't believe that I would dare to kill my way into the city lord's mansion, so how could Qinzheng have thought of it? You're getting stronger and stronger." Long Yunxiao glanced at him with a strange look in his eyes. His tone was somewhat complicated. "However, since you've done such a great deed, you'll definitely create a huge storm. I really don't know how you'll deal with this." Ji Tianqing was as calm as ever. He smiled faintly and said, "How do we end this? That's your imperial court's problem." Long Yunxiao's eyes were filled with anger. He glared at him and said, "You're really good at causing trouble. You've created such a huge mess, yet you're leaving it to the imperial court to deal with. Tell me, what's the surprise you're talking about?" Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. He said slowly, "The surprise is, I've helped the imperial court to find a group of parasites and evil forces that prey on the common people and harm the innocent. Qinzheng has been the city lord of Liantian City for decades. He's formed his own clique for personal gain. He's taken advantage of others and destroyed countless sects and clans. Who knows how many innocent people he's killed? His hands are filled with blood. He's full of evil. He's unscrupulous." Of course, the most important thing is that Qinzheng has secretly colluded with a few big shots of the imperial court. They've done a lot of dirty deeds. When he mentioned big shots, there was a hint of mockery in his tone. Long Yunxiao's expression changed slightly. Light flashed in his eyes. He had heard about all the evil deeds that Qinzheng had done. However, he did not ask about it because he did not have the corresponding evidence. Secondly, Qinzheng did not offend him. He did not have time to care about a small city lord. The third reason was the most important one. Qinzheng was the third prince's subordinate. If he dealt with Qinzheng without permission, it would mean that he was declaring war on the third prince. There were a few princes and lords in the imperial court. They were all people of high status and had a strong foundation. Even though Long Yunxiao was the emperor, he was only the crown prince. He had not ascended to the position of emperor. In this way, the other princes still had a chance to compete. Naturally, they would not give up on the competition and secretly accumulate forces. The princes and Long Yunxiao did not get along well. There were many conflicts and competitions in the dark. Especially the third prince. He had a strong foundation and could faintly compete with Long Yunxiao. This made Long Yunxiao very vigilant and cautious. Now, after hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Long Yunxiao vaguely understood something. His heart was naturally filled with excitement and anticipation. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and asked in a deep voice, "Do you have evidence for what you said just now?" Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "Of course I have evidence. Otherwise, why would I rush to the imperial court in the middle of the night?" "Good!" Long Yunxiao shouted excitedly. With a solemn expression, he said, "Ji Tianqing, I will bring you to see the imperial tutor now." With that, he stood up and was about to bring Ji Tianqing out of the study to find the imperial tutor. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, why are you helping me so actively? Long Yunxiao was startled. He said calmly, no, you should be the one helping me this time. Oh. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. He immediately understood what he meant. It seems that the sacred and dignified imperial court is also unavoidably vulgar. There are also power struggles in the imperial family. The mysterious backer behind Qin Jing seems to be a threat to you. Long Yunxiao didn't hide it. He nodded and said in a deep voice, you and I are both smart people. I won't hide it from you. Your guess is right. Powerful martial strength, power, and wealth are the lifelong pursuits of countless people. Therefore, where there are people, there will be disputes. Even the imperial court is no exception. Ji Tianqing nodded his head, expressing his agreement with his words. The two of them didn't say anything else. They left the study together and went to see the imperial tutor together. With Long Yunxiao leading the way, even if Ji Tianqing was carrying a bloody Qinzheng, he would still be able to pass through unimpeded. 15 minutes later, Long Yunxiao brought Ji Tianqing into the depths of the imperial court. In a cold and simple palace, they saw the sage-like imperial tutor. The imperial tutor was wearing a white robe. He was sitting cross-legged in the main hall, quietly meditating. There was no true essence flickering around his body. However, there was a mysterious and invisible energy lingering around him. It gave people an extremely sacred and powerful feeling of oppression. This invisible energy seemed to be able to see through people's hearts and see through all pretense and falsehood. Chapter 570. Long Yunxiao brought Ji Tianqing into the hall and bowed to the imperial tutor. The imperial tutor ended his meditation and opened his eyes. He looked at the two of them calmly. When the imperial tutor saw Ji Tianqing, he couldn't help but frown. When he saw the bloody man in Ji Tianqing's hand, his white eyebrows furrowed even more. Emperor, what are you doing? Long Yunxiao cupped his hands and reported, Your Majesty Imperial Tutor, there was a drastic change in Liantian City last night. The Liantian City Lord, Qin Zheng, sent 5 consecrators to assassinate Ji Tianqing, but they were all killed by Ji Tianqing. After that, Ji Tianqing killed his way into the city lord's mansion. Long Yunxiao told the imperial tutor about the cause of the incident. After the imperial tutor heard it, a look of astonishment flashed in his eyes. He looked at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. He found it hard to believe that Ji Tianqing had made such great progress in less than a month after entering the imperial tutor's mansion. It was simply shocking. This kid is indeed worthy of being the successor of the Kenshin. His strength has improved so quickly. But this kid is too daring. He actually caused such a disturbance. The imperial tutor thought to himself. His mood was a little complicated. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a solemn expression and asked in a deep voice, Ji Tianqing, you're the imperial prince of our clan. It's a big crime for Qinzheng to try to assassinate you. However, you need to show the corresponding evidence. Only then can the imperial court uphold justice for you. Ji Tianqing smiled and said in a calm tone, Your Majesty Imperial Tutor, of course I have evidence. Otherwise, how would I dare to come to the imperial court? As for upholding justice, there's no need for that. I'm just here to state the facts. It's up to the imperial court to decide how to deal with this matter. After saying that, he took out an image recording crystal. He first explained the reason for his enmity with the Liantian city lord. Then, he activated the image recording crystal to record the scene. The imperial tutor and Long Yunxiao had both seen Yu Biao's confession with their own eyes. After listening to Yu Biao's confession, they could confirm that Qinzheng had sent people to assassinate the crown prince. Next, Ji Tianqing took out the meteorite box filled with evidence and handed it to the imperial tutor. The imperial tutor flicked his finger and released a dazzling 5-colored light, opening the meteorite iron box. There was no need for him to flip through those letters, files, and account books. He only needed to scan them with his powerful soul to imprint their contents into his mind without missing a single word. After the imperial tutor learned about the forces, people, and events involved in the evidence, he immediately frowned deeply, and his eyes became sharp and dignified. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianqing, this matter is of great importance. I have to report it to the emperor before I can make a decision. Qin Zheng and these evidence will be left with me. You can go back and wait for the news. Don't worry, the imperial court will handle this matter impartially. They won't forgive Qin Zheng and won't hold you accountable." Ji Tianqing did not answer immediately. He turned his head and looked at Long Yunxiao beside him. Obviously, compared to the imperial tutor, he would rather believe Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao gave him a meaningful glance and nodded his head imperceptibly. Ji Tianqing immediately understood what he meant. He knew that the imperial tutor would not be partial to anyone. The imperial court would definitely handle this matter carefully. Moreover, Long Yunxiao would not let go of this opportunity to weaken his opponent's power. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing bowed to the imperial tutor and said, "In that case, I'll take my leave. Also, since I've come to the imperial court today, I'll use this opportunity to register with the imperial tutor and participate in the fight for the Tianjin region lord's position." The imperial tutor nodded slightly and said with a solemn expression, "Don't worry, I'll report this matter to the emperor." Ji Tianqing did not say anything else and turned to leave the hall. At this moment, dawn had finally arrived and the sky was showing a hint of white. Ji Tianqing left the imperial court and spread his wings to fly into the sky. He rushed back to Liantian city as fast as lightning. In the hall, the imperial tutor stared at Long Yunxiao and said meaningfully, "The emperor's methods are really admirable." In such a short time, the emperor was able to reconcile with Ji Tianqing and work together to accomplish such a feat. The imperial tutor knew the power of the evidence. It would definitely weaken the power of the two princes. This was great news for Long Yunxiao. He thought that Long Yunxiao and Ji Tianqing had reconciled, which was why they worked together to do such a big thing. However, Long Yunxiao shook his head and said with a solemn expression, "Imperial tutor, you've misunderstood. I've only just found out about this. For the past half a month, I've been in the imperial court. How could I order Ji Tianqing to do such a thing? Moreover, with Ji Tianqing's strength and character, how could I order him to do such a thing?" The imperial tutor's expression changed slightly and he was even more shocked. So, this matter was done by Ji Tianqing alone. He first entered the imperial residence and then caused trouble in Liantian city. Next month, he's going to participate in the fight for the Tianjin region lord's position. Every matter would cause a huge commotion. It seems that not only is his strength improving rapidly, his ambition is also expanding rapidly. Long Yunxiao nodded slightly and said with a solemn expression, "The ambition of a mediocre person is called fantasy. The ambition of a genius is called goal." After Ji Tianqing left the Tianjin region and stepped into the central region, he's like a real dragon entering the sea. He's going to stir up huge waves. I'm looking forward to the fight for the Tianjin region lord's position next month. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can defeat all the heroes and win the region lord's position. The imperial tutor pondered for a moment with a solemn expression and said, "Emperor, please go back. I'm going to meet the emperor to report this matter. Ji Tianqing is such a troublemaker. He's created such a huge disturbance and gave the emperor a difficult problem." Long Yunxiao didn't think so. He frowned and asked, "What kind of difficult problem is this?" There's an ancient saying that if a prince commits a crime, he's punished the same as a commoner. No matter who is involved in the crime, the emperor just needs to deal with it impartially. Even if it involves me, there's no exception. Long Yunxiao's tone was very solemn and serious. He was especially confident and righteous. The imperial tutor glanced at him and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he couldn't refute him. He could only mutter in his heart, "Emperor, Emperor, of course you hope that the Emperor will deal with it impartially. After all, the evidence involves the two princes and has nothing to do with you. You can't wait for the Emperor to punish the two princes severely." After a moment, the imperial tutor sent Long Yunxiao away. Then he took the unconscious Qin Zheng and the meteorite iron box to meet the Emperor. Early in the morning, the sky had just brightened and the morning light was still a little dim. The Emperor had just finished his meditation and was resting in the imperial study with his eyes closed. The imperial tutor suddenly walked in with a solemn expression. He was carrying a bloody man in his left hand and a meteorite iron box in his right hand. The Emperor opened his eyes and saw the imperial tutor's posture. His heart skipped a beat and he frowned unhappily. "Imperial tutor, what are you doing so early in the morning?" Chapter 571. The imperial tutor's words made the Emperor frown and reveal a solemn expression. Ji Tianqing. What kind of trouble did he cause? The Emperor thought to himself. Didn't he already send someone to keep an eye on Ji Tianqing? How did he get into trouble? The imperial tutor threw the unconscious Qin Zheng on the ground and explained to the Emperor, "Emperor, this is what happened. Qin Zheng has a good-for-nothing son called Qin Feng. He tried to flirt with An Suwen, who failed to be selected, but was caught by Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing destroyed Qin Feng's lineage, which naturally provoked Qin Zheng's revenge. He was then assassinated by 5 of Sky City's consecrators." The imperial preceptor recounted the cause and process of the matter from beginning to end. 15 minutes later, the imperial tutor finished explaining. He took out the meteorite box and placed the box full of letters and files in front of the Emperor. The celestial Emperor only needed to use his divine soul to scan through the letter and the contents of the file very quickly. The various evidence and records involved many forces and powerhouses, as well as some people in the imperial court. The Emperor immediately frowned and pondered with a solemn expression. The imperial tutor was not in a hurry and waited patiently. After about 10 breaths of time, the Emperor sighed in a low voice. "Ji Tianqing, this brat, is really a newborn calf that is not afraid of the tiger." The dignified city lord of Sky City was actually defeated by him in such a simple and violent manner. Speaking of which, not only is he not at fault, but he also contributed to the imperial court. I wonder if this was his own idea or Yun Xiao secretly instructed him to do it. The imperial tutor shook his head and said in a calm tone, "This old man has already asked the Emperor. He also just found out about this matter." A trace of regret flashed in the Emperor's eyes. He sighed softly and said, "Ji Tianqing and Yun Xiao are both intelligent and courageous. They are both extremely talented seedlings. If Yun Xiao can get Ji Tianqing's assistance, this Emperor can be at ease. It's a pity." The imperial tutor smiled and stroked his white beard. "We can't rush this matter. Let nature take its course. After what happened last night, this old man discovered that there seems to be some kind of tacit understanding between the Son of Heaven and Ji Tianqing. This old man believes that the situation that the imperial emperor is looking forward to will appear soon." The emperor nodded slightly and said, "I hope so." The imperial tutor glanced at the unconscious Qin Zheng and asked the monarch, "Monarch, the news of last night's incident must have spread out. Right now, Liantian City must be in an uproar. You have to make a decision on this matter and give me an answer. Otherwise, there will be more rumors and slanders, which will cause chaos in Liantian City." The imperial emperor nodded and said in a solemn tone, "Pass down my decree. Inform the people of Liantian City that the city lord, Qin Zheng, has taken bribes and perverted the law. He formed a clique for personal gain and even tried to murder the imperial prince of our clan. The imperial court has already investigated Qin Zheng's crimes. The evidence is conclusive and he will be beheaded in public." As the imperial emperor announced the result in a deep voice, the imperial tutor had already engraved the imperial emperor's decree on a piece of golden spiritual jade with his spiritual energy. Other than the city lord, Qinzheng, there were also a few heinous gangs and clans that were ordered to be annihilated by the imperial emperor. The result was just like what the imperial tutor had said. The imperial emperor treated this matter seriously and was fair and strict. He would never tolerate and nurture evil. A moment later, when the imperial emperor finished speaking, the imperial tutor had also drafted the decree. The imperial tutor was silent for a moment and asked again, "Imperial emperor, all the clans involved in this matter in Liantian city must be punished. What about the few people in the imperial court? Do you want to announce the news? How are you going to deal with them?" The imperial emperor frowned and said in a deep voice, "The 3 commanders and generals involved in this matter must be removed from their positions and investigated. They must be severely punished. The imperial court is the sacred place of our clan. It's definitely not a place to hide evil. How can this imperial emperor tolerate these vermin? As for the 2 princes, the 3rd prince has been leading the army for many years. This time, he will be punished to face the wall and reflect on his mistakes for a few months. The 4th prince has been handling internal affairs in the imperial court. He will be punished to guard the borders and train in the Donglin battlefield for half a year." The imperial tutor nodded slightly and agreed. "This is good too. I believe the 2 princes will understand the imperial emperor's intention with a small punishment but a big warning. After the 3 commanders and generals have been removed from their positions, how should we deal with the empty positions?" The imperial emperor said calmly, "Take this opportunity to hand them over to Yun Shao. He has been eyeing those positions for a long time. He can arrange his trusted subordinates, but imperial tutor, you have to check carefully and make sure there are no problems before you agree." "Yes, imperial tutor." The imperial tutor cupped his hands and bowed. Then, he left the study room with the imperial emperor's decree in his hands. When Ji Tianqing returned to Liantian city, the sun had just risen. A new day had arrived, and the city was bustling with noise and excitement. However, the atmosphere in the city was a little strange and stifling. Many cultivators and commoners had heard about the upheaval in the city lord's mansion last night and were discussing with worry. All the big and small forces in the city had also received the news that the city lord's mansion was almost destroyed and that the city lord, Qinzheng, had gone missing. Many forces had a premonition that Liantian city was going to be in turmoil and upheaval. They were all worried about this as they didn't know how the situation would develop. They could only wait and see. When Ji Tianqing returned to Yunlan courtyard, he saw that the guards in the courtyard had a solemn expression and looked like they were in a hurry. The guard captain who was guarding the courtyard's gate had a solemn expression and there was a hint of worry between his brows. After seeing him, the guard captain was startled for a moment. Then, he immediately revealed an expression of relief. "Young Master Ji, you're finally back." Ji Tianqing frowned and asked in a dignified voice, "What's wrong? What happened?" The guard captain quickly came forward and bowed respectfully. He said with a smile, "Young Master Ji, Eldest Miss has received the news about what happened last night. Eldest Miss sent the guards in the mansion to look for you everywhere. Now that you've come back safely, you should go and see Eldest Miss first so that she won't worry about you." Ji Tianqing couldn't help but feel warm in his heart when he heard that Yun Yao was worried about him. He nodded and said, "Okay, I know." After crossing the gate and entering the courtyard, he rushed to the small courtyard where Yun Yao lived. After a while, he entered Yun Yao's residence and saw Yun Yao sitting in the living room. She was silently waiting for the news with a worried expression on her face. "Yao Yao, I'm back." He stepped into the living room and greeted Yun Yao with a smile. Yun Yao immediately raised her head and looked at him. Seeing that he had returned safe and sound, she immediately felt relieved. Only then did the big stone in her heart fall down. "Tianqing, it's good that you're okay." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He walked to her side and sat down. Yunyao looked at him with a solemn expression and asked, Tianqing, did you kill your way into the city lord's mansion alone last night and capture city lord Qinzheng? Yes. Ji Tianqing nodded and admitted it. Then, he asked, Yao Yao, how do you know so clearly? Yunyao said in a serious tone, I'm not the only one who knows this news. I'm afraid that the entire city knows about it. You went on a killing spree in the city lord's mansion, and many people witnessed it with their own eyes. The news has already spread. Chapter 572. Ji Tianqing only found out after asking Yunyao that what happened last night had already spread. Many forces and cultivators in Liantian city basically knew that the city lord's mansion was destroyed and the city lord was captured. When he went on a killing spree in the city lord's mansion, there were hundreds of people who witnessed the entire process with their own eyes. Those people were the guards and servants of the city lord's mansion, as well as the disciples and family members of the Qin family. When he captured Qin Zheng and left the city lord's mansion, those hundreds of people fled the city lord's mansion in a panic and spread the news. Now, most people knew that the culprit behind the destruction of the city lord's mansion and the capture of city lord Qin Zheng was Ji Tianqing. Yunyao was a little worried but she remained calm. She said to Ji Tianqing in a calm tone, Tianqing, since you're back, stay in the Yunlan courtyard and don't leave. Even if Qin Zheng's allies and backers want to take revenge on you, they might not dare to barge into the Yunlan courtyard. Qin Zheng was the one who committed the crime first. It's not your fault. Even if you kill him, he deserves it. I'll go to the imperial court to meet the emperor later and report this matter clearly. I believe the emperor won't punish you. In the past 4 hours, Yunyao had already thought of a countermeasure and made the corresponding preparations. No matter what, she wouldn't let anything happen to Ji Tianqing. Even if she had to use the Yun family's power, she would protect him. However, Ji Tianqing smiled and shook his head after hearing her words. Yao Yao, you don't have to go to the imperial court. I just came back from there. As for Qin Zheng, I didn't kill him. I've already handed him over to the imperial court. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Let's just wait and watch the show. Yunyao was stunned. Her eyes revealed a look of surprise. What? You've already been to the imperial court? Tianqing, Qin Zheng, is the city lord of Liantian city. It's said that he has a prince as his backer. Even if the imperial court wants to punish him, they must have sufficient evidence. Without waiting for her to finish, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, Don't worry. If I don't have enough evidence, why would I go to the imperial court rashly? Moreover, I've already handed Qin Zheng and a large amount of evidence to the imperial tutor. I believe the imperial court will handle it impartially. We just need to wait for the results. Only then did Yunyao feel completely at ease. Her mood and expression relaxed. That's good. She paused for a moment. Seeing Ji Tianqing's travel-worn and weary appearance, she said in a soft voice, Tianqing, you had a great battle last night and then ran back and forth. You must be very tired. Go back and rest. I'll take care of the rest. If there's any news, I'll look for you. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. After bidding farewell to Yunyao, he turned around and left. At the same time, Yunyao was also busy. She ordered the guards who were searching for Ji Tianqing to stop their search and inquire about the news in the city. About half an hour later, a guard captain rushed back to the Misty Cloud courtyard and reported the situation to her face to face. Reporting to young Mississippi, Liantian city is in turmoil today. There are undercurrents surging. All the forces are getting restless. They seem to be plotting something. Some of them are even secretly looking for young Master Ji. However, the imperial court is very fast. They've already sent hundreds of imperial guards to protect the city lord's mansion. The imperial guards forbid anyone from getting close to the city lord's mansion. I can't spy on the situation inside for the time being. The hundreds of survivors in the city lord's mansion have been isolated and are waiting for the imperial court's decision. Yun Yao nodded slightly after listening. The city lord's mansion has been destroyed. Qin Zheng's whereabouts are unknown. All the major forces want to take advantage of the situation. Of course, they'll wait for an opportunity to act. But this time, their plan was going to fail. Liantian City is right under the imperial court's feet. How can the imperial court not act quickly? With the imperial court taking care of this matter, how can they take advantage of the situation? The guard captain continued to report. The commoners in the city are also talking about it. There are all kinds of rumors circulating in the streets. Most people know that it was young Master Ji who did it. The commoners have different opinions about it. Some people are happy about what happened to the city lord's mansion. Some people are happy about it. They think that young Master Ji is in big trouble and will be punished by the imperial court. Yun Yao sneered. She said coldly, those ignorant commoners only know about the city lord's mansion's power. They don't know about the imperial prince's mansion's nobility. So what if Tianqing really killed Qin Zheng? How can a puny city lord be compared to the imperial prince? When the imperial court's decision is announced, I want to see what those people who are happy about it will think. After the guard captain reported the news, he bowed and left. Yun Yao sat in the hall and continued to wait. About 4 hours later, it was noon. Yun Luo rushed back to Yun Lan's residence and personally reported the situation to Yun Yao. Young miss, the imperial court's guards rushed to the city and posted the imperial edict. They announced the imperial emperor's order. City lord Qin Zheng formed a gang and killed innocent people. He even tried to assassinate imperial prince Tianqing. He was sentenced to death by the imperial emperor and has been beheaded in public. The few gangs and families that colluded with Qin Zheng have been exterminated by the imperial court's guards. In addition, a few big families and sects that were implicated have also been punished by the imperial court. Their vitality has been greatly damaged. After hearing this, Yun Yao's eyes flashed with a smile. She whispered, I didn't expect the imperial court to act so quickly. They announced the punishment so quickly. It seems that the evidence that Tianqing personally handed to the imperial court is irrefutable. Qin Zheng has been executed by the imperial court. With so many forces involved, Liantian City will be in turmoil for a long time. After Yun Luo finished talking about the imperial court's order, he said with a strange expression, Young miss, most people in the city think that young Master Ji will be punished severely by the imperial court. Those people are gloating and waiting to see young Master Ji make a fool of himself. There are even a few imperial princes who secretly spread rumors that young Master Ji will become the most embarrassing imperial prince and become the laughing stock of the imperial residence. However, everyone was so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell to the ground when they saw the imperial court's order. Everyone in Liantian City was dumbfounded. They couldn't believe this result. Some people recklessly guessed and analyzed that young Master Ji must have a powerful force behind him for him to be safe and sound. There are even some people with ulterior motives who spread the news that young Master Ji is living in Yun Lan's residence. He is young Mrs. Lover and the future son-in-law of the Yun family. Yun Luo's expression and tone were a little angry. He was obviously angry at those rumors and didn't want to see Yun Yao's reputation damaged. However, Yun Yao looked indifferent. She wasn't angry at all. She thought to herself, those people are right. Tianqing is indeed the future son-in-law of the Yun family. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.